This is not a comic news episode, obviously by the title, you can tell. But there are some things that maybe we should talk about that have transpired.
Quite a few things. And some of them are pretty near and dear to our subject matter tonight, actually.
Ooh. But yeah, I'm down with that.
That's right.
Yeah, the first thing that came to my mind, and this news dropped a couple of days ago now, and that is about the Punisher being in Spider-Man: Brand New Day.
Yes. What's your like initial knee jerk reaction to hearing that, and then how do you feel about it now that you've had like damn near a week at this point to stew on it? But we didn't want to talk about this during the Fan Four Stick review. we felt like John Bernthal, actually all of Marvel deserved more, a little more respect than that.
And by the way, some of y'all are wilding about these Fan Four Stick takes, but yeah, I think that like my knee jerk reaction to John Bernthal being in Brand New Day was, holy shit, this should be amazing, no pun intended. But like after that, my thought was, this is pretty damn big. This is really big, but they cannot fuck this up.
Yeah.
And my thing is, it's going to be really difficult. It's going to be really difficult for them to pull this off just because of the nature of the Punisher. When you look at anything that John Bernthal has been in as the Punisher, it has a certain tone to it. All of it, whether it be Daredevil Season 2 on Netflix or his own Netflix series or Born Again, like there is a certain grit and aura that comes with Frank Castle. And I don't know how that suitably fits in with a Spider-Man movie that will surely be rated PG-13.
Yeah, I think Kevin Feige actually like confirmed that as well, that it will be PG-13, which, not to jump us off of this, but in that same week, James Gunn confirmed that the Clayface movie will be rated R.
Yeah.
So, nice little tidbit. But, so I agree with you. Like, originally, like, it's like, oh, yeah, we got the Punisher in here. Because a lot of people, everybody, with the Spidey movies, and I think this has worked out very well for them, so there's no reason for them to change this up. Spidey always has a very major MCU cameo in the movie.
Yep.
Like, in the very first movie, obviously, it was Tony Stark. And in the second movie, it was Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury. And then in the third one, obviously, it was Doctor Strange.
Yeah. And everybody.
Yeah. Doctor Strange, and then everyone else also. But in this one, I think a lot of people assumed that it was going to be the Hulk, and I think he will still be in it. But the fact that they've got John Bernthal in there, and they're making this out, I mean, obviously, if he was just going to be in it as a cameo, they wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
So he's going to have a larger role than that. In thinking about it right now, I don't think he's going to be a protagonist in the movie, at least not for the majority of it. Like, I actually think that Spidey might try to shut him down. That might be the angle.
I can see something like that. The reason why the Punisher thing could work is because in the comics, Punisher did make his first appearance in the Spider-Man books.
Right.
Secondly, Marvel clearly wants Spider-Man to be more ground level right now.
Right.
He's been to space fighting aliens and whatnot, and I understand completely why they want to strip him down and bring him back down to Earth, literally and metaphorically. And having him be on screen with the Punisher is a great way to do that. And having Punisher be more of an antagonistic force for at least part of the movie is a good idea, but that works if they have like a common goal, but two different ways to get there.
Yeah.
So case in point, not saying that the Kingpin would be in it, but that would be a great way to get to that point, But let's say that Vincent D'Onofrio was in Brand New Day as Kingpin. And Spider-Man wants to take this guy down. Obviously, Punisher wants to take him down. They have two different ways of going about it. Spider-Man's not going to want Punisher to fucking Swiss cheese Kingpin, And I can see that causing some friction. I think what I would like, but I don't think we're going to get because they would have announced this too, I would really like for Charlie Cox's Daredevil to be in this.
I was just thinking like that as well, and then my brain immediately went, what would be even better to bring him down to the ground level would be to have the motherfucker in season 2 of Born Again.
Yes. But I think Punisher would be really cool to be in Brand New Day because that's almost someone who Peter could look to kind of fill that mentor role that's now absent, you know?
Now, Doomsday is going to be end of next year now.
Yep.
And so Brand New Day is not going to be until like July 27?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that we will be on season 3 of Born Again by then. So they would need to make all that work.
Wait, Doomsday is the end of next year.
Right, and then Brand New Day would be in 27. So we'd be on season 3 by then.
I guess you're right.
Because we're getting season 2 in January of 26.
Yeah. So Brand New Day's between Doomsday and Secret Wars.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless they push Doomsday out
oh no
further. Yeah.
Please no. Okay. I'm with you now. For some reason I was thinking that
Wait. No, you're right. Doomsday got moved, not Spidey.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. I'm dumb. Yeah, because originally it was that way, and then they moved it. So Brand New Day is still next year.
Yes.
And then Doomsday will be after that. So theoretically then, they could angle Daredevil season 2 to lead into Brand New Day.
They could. That would be that'd be a move right there. I would really like to see that. I just don't know what Marvel has planned with their like precious Spider-Man appearances, you know?
Yeah, it's also like, how do you like? Obviously, the major complaint with Born Again is that the finale sucked. Mm-hmm. It's like, are you gonna hit us with that again? Going into Brand New Day, well, you don't have to wait a whole year, but you do got to wait like 6 months to go see Spider-Man to see what happens. I just feel like that's maybe too much. But it is the MCU, right? And once upon a time, they had this shit together. So maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Speaking of MCU news, we got a director for X-Men this week.
We do.
What's the guy's name? He's got directed Thunderbolts.
Josh, is it Schreiber? Am I making that up?
It's not Trank.
Yeah, I might have just made the whole name up.
The whole thing. The whole thing. As we all reach for our phones. We're professionals here, folks.
That's
I promise.
Right. We know what we're doing here.
That's right. Let's see. Jake Schreier.
Okay. I was close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he would be directing whatever the hell they're going to call the X-Men movie.
Honestly, at this point, I think they should just call it X-Men and just leave it right there at that.
Yeah. Not to rabbit hole us down that already, but, you know, if you go off certain rumors and whatnot, it seems like maybe Marvel after Secret Wars is going to kind of put a pause for a while on like the Avengers being the tentpole movies and move more towards the X-Men being that. And
I think that's smart.
Yeah, I think that is too.
I also think we're going to get a soft reboot.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's what Secret Wars is absolutely going to be. That is, I've always said that, like, Flashpoint is DC's way of should be the way of telling a really good story and soft rebooting shit that needs to be rebooted. And for Marvel, it's Secret Wars. Like, if they need to soft reboot some stuff and tell a good story, that's what you adapt.
Yeah.
Now, that would be a good way for them to maybe write off some characters who need to go ahead and ride off into the sunset, and or recast characters who maybe need to come back, or just flat out introduce new characters without like all this pomp and circumstance,
I think that apparently, and this ties into this. I also heard this week, and take this with a grain of salt. This is like, kind of some like, not top tier rumors thing. This is like just some kind of through the grapevine type stuff. He hasn't talked to me about it personally, but Kevin Feige apparently has so much faith in Fantastic Four that they've already greenlit a sequel.
Really?
Is what I'm hearing, yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know, man. I hope that's true. I did read an interview with Pedro Pascal where he was like, you know, there's a lot more like disgruntled fans about this than any role I've ever played. And he's like, I see the stuff out there. And he's like, it is what it is, basically. He's like, I gave it 100%, and I'm going to keep doing that, and that's really all I can do. And, you know, so I hope he does well. Yeah. I really hope this is, I wouldn't even say this is like a Heath Ledger situation, because the pushback for Ledger was way, way more than anything Pedro Pascal has encountered, I think.
Yeah, and Pedro's been in some big, high-profile shit, you know.
Yeah, I think what it is right now is Pedro Pascal is so in all forms of media that, like, when people see him standing there, they just see Pedro Pascal.
Yeah,
like they don't see Reed Richards standing there. But here's the thing, folks, and I want to make this very, very clear. His profession is that he's an actor. And so that's his job, is to make us forget that we're staring at Pedro Pascal for 2 hours. So we'll see if he can do that. If I had to bet on it, I would bet he's probably going to pull it off. But we will know pretty damn soon. So
we're going to know really soon.
about a month.
I know what your practices are with these movies, but they did drop another trailer for Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I refuse. Yeah, I've already seen too much, I think.
Yeah, so I won't reveal any of like the spoilerifics.
Did it change your opinion at all on anything?
It gave it a much needed sense of dread.
Oh, good.
At least that's what I got from it.
I think it's going to be dark.
Yeah, it might. You know, it's interesting, right? Because like when you think like retro 60s futuristic vibe, you don't really get dark just from that. You know what I mean? I really like.
It's going to start out Jetsons, but end Fallout.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, oh no, this got real dark. I like the way that Silver Surfer has introduced herself and her purpose. She does that here in the trailer. I thought that was pretty cool. Mild spoiler. You do see there is a baby Franklin sighting.
Oh, does he take his first step?
He does not. He's being carried.
That's got to be the end of the movie, right? I mean,
it might be. I mean, we don't know like the time span on this.
So I gotta ask, because I'm not gonna watch the trailer. Silver Surfer, did they keep the rack? Did they adjust it back down?
It still looks about the same.
Because, you know, it was small originally. And then they enlarged it. And then the internet was like, what? and so I was like, are they going to do it again? So
yeah, from what I can remember, it is still phase 2 rack. You know?
Listen, folks, I'm here to ask the questions that you really want the answers to.
One more interesting thing about the Fantastic Four movie, and that is the runtime. It apparently has been adjusted. It went from about 2 hours and 10 minutes, but then if you go check the runtime now at like your local listings for like your movie tickets, it'll say 1 hour and 55. So there's about 15 or so minutes that's missing. And there's also been rumors that John Malkovich's character had been cut out or greatly reduced. So people are wondering if it's just that or if it's some other parts, but I don't know. It's interesting.
Maybe they cut Seth Rollins from yet another movie.
Oh my gosh.
What you gonna do about Galactus now?
We'll put you in this one for real, Seth. All right. Oh no. Yeah, so I don't really know what to think about like the time discrepancy for the runtime of this movie, but Yeah, I think that right now I'm about as excited for this movie as I could be.
Right.
Again, like the bar is in hell for this movie. You know, like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to do a whole lot to be the best Fantastic Four movie.
If you guys don't believe us, I got 4 episodes for you. We have reviewed the 1990s Fantastic Four. We have reviewed the 2005. We have reviewed Rise of the Silver Surfer. And we have reviewed Fan Four Stick. So go and check that out. Also, I normally don't comment on these types of things, but I saw one comment on one of the Fan Four Stick reviews, and I just could not help myself because one of the homies out there was like, yeah, Doom in this one was pretty hit or miss for me. And I was like, I'm going to need you to lay out the hits in detail for me. And I haven't seen if they've responded. But if the hits are in there, I must have just like the 2 times I've watched that movie, I must have like looked away right as the hit happened, or like checked my phone, or you know.
Yeah, you don't remember that part where he does something really cool and really Doctor Doomish?
Yeah, there must have been this like moment where he like espoused about the like great things that would benefit you from becoming a citizen of Latveria. Yeah. You know. Or, you know, did like some really cool like shit with his like magic or whatever. But no, or built some Doom bots.
You know what's crazy? And I was thinking about this after we got done with our 2015 Fantastic Four review. Boy, as much as it hurts to say this, the 1994 Fantastic Four movie is the most comic accurate.
Yeah.
And like it's not by a small margin either.
No.
It's pretty fucking wild.
Yeah. Yeah, the bar is in hell, folks. Yeah. I don't think any of those movies got more than a 5 from us.
Oh, the 5 is by far the highest score that we collectively gave any of those movies.
Yeah. So here we are.
IronHeart is also just came out.
It premiered last night.
It did. I think it's not all 6. I think it's 3 now and then 3 next week. Yep.
Which is a weird way to release it.
It really is, yeah.
I tend to try not to read critic reviews of things because, you know, obviously, like, I watch this kind of stuff because I enjoy it, but, like, the main focus here is making sure that I can bring you guys the most detailed and thorough viewpoint that I can provide. And the last thing I want to do is read a review of something and then come on here and just sort of ape things from that. And it's very hard not to do, especially if you read the review before you go see the movie.
Yeah.
Because the reviewer might have picked out some shit that I never even thought of.
Right.
But then now that I've read it in the review, now I'm be sitting there looking for it the whole time. Mm-hmm. So it really skews things like that. However, I went on Rotten Tomatoes and I saw how bad the IronHeart scores are. And I was like, okay, let me pick out one of these reviews and read it. And from what I've gathered, the first 3 episodes are meh. The back 3 episodes are better than that.
Okay.
But apparently at the end, they do something super infuriating. Now, Ryan Coogler came out this week and said that IronHeart leads directly into Doomsday.
Oh.
And I was like, is Riri even in Doomsday?
We didn't see her chair.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they have more people to announce, but...
So I guess we're going to be reviewing that in 3 weeks?
I suppose so. When there's a break in the movies that we're doing, that's I think when we're doing IronHeart.
I think we might have to kick it back up to 2 a week.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because so the reason we're doing this Superman preview tonight, which that's what we're doing here. I don't know if you guys clicked on this, but without if maybe we just are automatically fed into your mind or your feed at this point. But the reason we're doing it this week is because next week we're going to be reviewing Jurassic World. Mm-hmm. And then the week after that, we're going to be attending an early screening of Superman so we can bring the review to you guys even earlier than we normally would be able to.
Yes.
And then I think after that, we have to do IronHeart, and then it'll be time for Fantastic Four.
Yep. So, yeah, that's what our lineup in July looks like. It's a pretty stout lineup we got going on there. So I'm looking forward to that.
We gotta get a throwback going.
We do. We really do.
Yeah.
It's been so packed that it's been hard to put one in, but yeah, we got to.
We've been on the content train, folks.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna have to get a little Ironheart in there. Also, my the new Cosmere book comes out on July 1st.
Oh,
so
shit.
I have to actually read that. And speaking of things we have to read, is we got to fucking do Doomsday Clock.
Yes.
I actually started reading that.
Oh, cool.
So I just need to finish it so we can review it, or we can review it and then I finish it, whichever order you want to do it.
I can do either or, but preferably, you read it first and then we review it.
Like, I would never do it to the homies, but like one of these days, I would love to, like, come on here and tell you I've read a thing or watched a thing and I haven't, and just see how far I can get through the review before you notice. Like,
here's the thing, it won't take long. Not for me, and it also depends on what kind of comic book it is. I guess something like Doomsday Clock, I'll be able to tell within the first 5 minutes if you read this or not.
yeah.
So hey, dog, what you think about that Rorschach reveal?
Yeah, I'll be like, yeah, man. So like when it turned out that it was Tim Drake, dog, I was like, what the fuck? I did not see that coming.
Yeah. I'd be like, all right, homies, we'll be right back and hit the pause button.
Yeah, like when the feed comes back, it's noticeably that we have on different clothes. And...
yeah, it's like a different time of day. Like it's clearly a different day.
Yeah. Snowing outside.
Right.
Yeah.
And here we are, folks, picking right back up where we left off at.
Yeah. With our review of Doomsday Clock.
One more thing on IronHeart, and that is this. Again, this is just a rumor, folks. So don't take it with the grain of salt. The rumor is that there is a definitive Mephisto cameo. Have you heard about this?
I have. I also heard about another cameo, which I won't reveal here because it is a spoiler. But you actually called this one a while back. We could talk about it off mic. Okay. But honestly, I think the MCU could benefit from having Mephisto. I definitely think that Mephisto is shaping up to be sort of the witchy corner of the MCU's big bad. And I really like that. Like, I had somebody yesterday that isn't really into the Marvel stuff, but they really loved Agatha. And I think there's a lot of fans like that really, really love that show. And I thought it was tremendous also. So it seems like that's going to feed right into Vision Quest. And that obviously that you're kind of right to steer that whole thing into the Mephisto direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't. I like Mephisto finally being in the MCU. I don't know if I like him appearing here first. It's just a weird place for him to be, in the Ironheart TV show. There's several people who I would love to see in the Ironheart show that I think would help bolster it. Mephisto isn't the one that comes to mind.
Is it Tony Stark?
Well,
Colonel James Rhodes.
That would be another good one. Yeah, and there's several good people.
Morgan Stark. Anyone who has ever been in a room with Tony Stark
right.
at some point.
Yeah. Justin Hammer, man, like that would have been phenomenal to have him return.
I actually have heard that Armor Wars is scrapped.
That's what I've heard too.
And I'm like, yes, let's keep Ironheart, the thing we all really truly wanted to see, and scrap Iron Wars.
Armor Wars.
Armor Wars, yeah. Clear. I was like, that doesn't sound right. And I said it again, I was like, it still doesn't sound right. The thing that none of us really wanted to see at all.
Yeah, that was such a weird thing for them to do. And, just real quickly before we end this 25-minute cold open.
Yeah.
And that is, believe it or not, homies, hopefully this isn't a hot take for some of you. It probably is, but when it comes to comic books, right, Iron Man actually doesn't have that many great stories. Not by himself. Most of his great stories and moments come from Avengers, come from those team-up books. But as far as solo books goes, he has Demon in the Bottle. He's got Extremis. He's got Armor Wars. He's got like the Matt Fraction run. That whole thing was really good. And like outside of that, he doesn't have a whole lot more like super strong, really, really high quality, noticeable or notable comic book runs.
And in the MCU, he's got Iron Man 1.
Yes.
I was done. I was done.
So, they're just really being comic book accurate with these movies. But I say that because, like, Armor Wars was a comic that really stuck out for Iron Man. And, I was really looking forward to seeing, like, how they would adapt that. And apparently Marvel also had no idea how they would do that. And so they said, fuck it. And I get it, like, maybe the purists out there wanted to see Tony Stark in Armor Wars, but I think that having it be like a James Rhodes led thing would have been really cool as well, and that would have been a great way to help bolster Riri, But what do I know? I'm just a guy with a microphone.
Yeah, I really don't know what they're doing here. They had this whole thing that they put out on social media where it was like Robert Downey Jr. calling, is it Dominique Thorne?
Yep.
And like waking her up and being like, hey, it's your premiere day or whatever, and like surprising her and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, okay, so someone at Marvel does know that these two characters are supposed to be like, like one, like that her character is supposed to sort of idolize him. Mm-hmm. So maybe she should mention him at least once.
At least once, yeah. Something. And it's kind of hard to pass the torch when there is no torch to pass and no one to get it from.
Yeah.
So,
anyway.
We'll let you guys know what we think of the IronHeart show in just a couple weeks here. Let us watch it and digest it, and we will give it our fair, fully unbiased opinion. But as of now, homies one and all, allow us to welcome you back to another very special episode of the Superhero Homies podcast. My name is Quentin, and as always, I am here with the world's coolest co-host. I'm talking about the homie Caleb.
I have to move to a different part of the country to be the world's coolest co-host because the heat index here today is 107, folks. So
I hated everything about going outside today.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be that way for a couple days now, I think. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is not awesome. However, our topic here tonight, folks, in 2 weeks, we have a major movie event coming out for all of you homies out there. It is going to be the official dawn of the DCU, which is the DC Universe. It is the all-new DC continuity. Technically, Creature Commandos was the first entry in this, but this is going to be the first live-action entry into this. And so tonight, we thought we would kind of give you guys a bit of a brief rundown of like Superman's history in media, especially in a live action, and kind of like what's worked, what hasn't, how it's been received, and then talk about some things that we are excited for or expecting out of the Superman movie when we were able to see it like 10 days from now.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that Superman is basically here at this point.
Yeah.
Dog, I remember like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, talking about this movie.
I remember the day that DC just kind of busted out with the whole, hey, we hired James Gunn and Peter Safran to be in charge of the new DC universe. And then you were thinking, okay, well, that's all we're going to hear. And then we're not going to hear anything for a while. And they're like, and here they are to tell you about it. Yeah. And then they just like went in. And I remember calling you and being like, we need to record today. And you were like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I like ran over here. And we recorded an episode right then about everything that they talked about. And it is crazy, man, that we're basically here.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this movie. And in preparation, I did something actually that I haven't done in decades, like plural. I actually went back and I watched the original 1978 Superman movie and the sequel, Superman 2, came out in 1980.
Now, which of those are you? Are you a Superman 2 guy?
I am. I like I prefer the Donner cut. I couldn't find it as readily available because I think the version that's on Max is the Richard Lester cut, the original cut.
I'll have to fix that for you.
Absolutely.
I also prefer the Donner cut.
When was the last time you saw these movies? Because it's been a long time for me.
It's been a while for me. I can't imagine that they aged well.
It's like you don't expect them to, but at the same time, I have to put myself in the mind frame of these movies came out 10 years before I was born. What they did was pretty fucking cool for the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like kind of like it's been a while since I watched these, and I probably will watch them before the movie comes out. But like, if you think about '89 Batman,
yeah,
I mean that movie is what 40? No,
it came out.
It's 36 years old.
Yeah, 36.
I was fucking 2 years old when that movie came out, and if you go and watch that movie, now obviously you can tell it wasn't made now.
Yeah,
but it's not like showing its age terribly. You know, it's kind of like watching like Star Wars. You know what I mean? It's like if you watch the Blu-ray cuts of those, you wouldn't think they were made in the 70s.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like there's certain movies that you watch where you recognize that they have age on them, but you also recognize that these movies help move cinema forward. You know,
yeah,
it's like you watched Terminator 2 and it's like, yeah, I can tell this is probably made in the 90s, but I can also tell this was big for cinema.
Right. Yeah.
And rewatching Superman, like that's kind of the notion that I got from it. There are a few things I wanted to say about these movies before we move on that I thought was pretty interesting for me. One is as soon as you press play on 78 Superman, they hit you with that score, that iconic score. And it does what it needs to do. It gets you hype. And I'm like, yeah, all right, let's do this. Sitting on my couch. And then, after a while, I pull out my phone and, I'm glancing up and down. And then after a while, I'm like, okay, I really like this score, but what the fuck is happening right now? The first 5 minutes of the movie is opening credits. And I timed it. It is 5 minutes of just credits.
So I had to go look it up, but I was pretty sure John Williams did those.
Yeah.
And that was actually really popular with movies that he did the music for. Is John Williams is so good at what he fucking does.
Yeah.
Is they want to hit you with that score, and they want like that score would encapsulate the tone of the movie and get you in the mindset while you sat through like 2 hours of fucking credits. And it's actually interesting you bring that up because George Lucas was actually like ostracized in Hollywood because he refused to do that.
Yeah, really.
If you go and look for like movies of that era, it was actually like a very accepted thing. Is like the mindset in Hollywood was like, as soon as the movie was over, people are out. It's not like today where people are like Googling, is there an after credit scene? If there is, they stay. You know, they were like, oh no, like I don't want my name at the end. Nobody's gonna see it. Yeah. And so they mandated like when they started a project, it was like you negotiated then if you were going to be in the opening credits. Yeah. And it was usually the director, usually like the executive producers, composers sometimes, and then like a couple of your lead stars. Sometimes it would be more than that, depending on like how the negotiations went. Indiana Jones and Last Crusade, actually all three of the Indiana Jones movies, but that one in particular, are super bad about it. It's like they go for so long, you know. But obviously the Star Wars movies refused to do that, and George Lucas got in hot water with a lot of like the big Hollywood folks, which is actually why he had to produce he had to pay for the prequels himself. Oh, because obviously anybody, if you took that to 20th Century Fox, you would think in a heartbeat they'd be like, yeah, whatever, $10 billion, here you go, make it, you know. But no, that's why he had to finance them himself. It's like none of the major Hollywood people would touch them because of that. They were still salty about that shit. Wow, that's petty as fuck.
That's so petty.
Like, how much money did they pass on to be petty as fuck about that?
Yeah, that's next level of petty right there.
Yeah. Like, I'm gonna tell you right now, like, there's a lot of people that I know that I don't like, don't want to be in a room with them. But if they were like, I pay you like $100 to have lunch with me. I'd be like, what time?
Yeah, what time? Yeah. What you want to eat?
Yeah. My petty don't extend into like my wallet.
Exactly. The other thing I noticed right off the bat was Marlon Brando got top billing.
Yeah.
And I get it. You know, Marlon Brando, Apocalypse Now, which I think Apocalypse Now had come out by that point, and obviously Godfather, you know. Like, he was the big star in this movie, you know. But still, he's got, like, the first 5 minutes of actual movie time, you know.
Yeah.
And after that, you know, he's got, like, you know, kind of glorified cameos later on. But, yeah, Marlon Brando had top billing.
Above Christopher Reeve or Gene Hackman.
Yes. Which is wild.
So the 78 Superman is, I think, really iconic in the same way the 89 Batman is, where it's like, this is the thing that introduced modern audiences. And with this one, it's hard to say modern audiences because most of the people who were watching this on opening night are, you know, not like in the 18 to 49 demo anymore. But you know, a lot of like, this is the thing that like set the idea in people's minds for what Superman is. And that has carried over to today. I mean, obviously, like, Man of Steel is the biggest exception.
Yeah. And, you know, like, when it comes to Superman, right, like, because this movie is before our time, obviously, like, we were still able to watch it. It's not like we don't watch movies that are older than us.
Right.
But we weren't there for the craze of it.
Right.
You know? And so it's, I mean, same thing with Star Wars. Like, we weren't there for the craze of it, like, when it first popped off. But, you know, that doesn't mean we can't appreciate it. But it's interesting going back and watching Superman now, you know, as an adult who, you know, has a lot more exposure to Superman than I did, you know, all those years ago. And for me, like, I didn't really start digging the movie. I didn't really start liking the movie until Christopher Reeve shows up. And then, like, as soon as he's on screen, I'm like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, this guy's really fucking good. Like, they really got the right person for this role here.
What did you think about Gene Hackman as Lex?
Gene Hackman's Lex, here's the thing about his Lex Luthor. It is actually really, it's really good to me. However, there's a caveat there. This is based on like the original Lex Luthor and not the more modernized version that we're all familiar with now, you know. The one that is more charismatic and nuanced, the one that has, you know, this narcissistic viewpoint on Superman and on the world as a whole. This is like just the mustache twirling, I'm doing evil shit because type of Lex Luthor. And I'll be honest, Lex Luthor and his cronies, they are the comic relief in this movie. And that kind of threw me off.
Yeah.
But they are like, they are straight up the comic relief here.
Well, and back then, you know, villains in movies were never complex.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I mean, you go look at it, like, Jack Nicholson's Joker was looked at the same way that, like, Heath Ledger's Joker was looked at in 2008 back then, because even though, you know, he does drop some one-liners and stuff in that movie, and he does have some funny moments, he was played very much like that was considered to be a dark and like deep, rich villain for that time frame, because it was not a thing, right? Like that just isn't a thing that cinema was able to or that audiences wanted back then. You know, that just wasn't a thing. Same reason that like Darth Vader was such a big deal.
Yeah.
He's not out here fucking cracking jokes and shit, you know.
Right.
He was serious. They were like, "Oh man, this guy looks kind of crazy, weird in his little suit with all the little buttons on it." And then he like choked a motherfucker to death. And then everybody was like, "Oh, okay, all right, well, we won't mess with him. That guy's gonna get up in a minute."
Yeah, we should probably leave him alone. You know, something else that stuck out to me that I did not know or remember was in the first 5 minutes of the actual footage of the movie, obviously you have Marlon Brando as Jor-El, and he's literally holding court. And we see Zod and his cronies being sent to the Phantom Zone.
Yeah.
I did not remember that. In my memory, they were only in Superman 2. I forgot completely that, no, for about a minute, they are in Superman 1.
And clearly they had an idea of what to do with them, you know.
But bold of them to assume that a superhero movie in 1978 would get a sequel.
Right, because this was it.
Yeah.
I mean, there were superhero movies before this, but they didn't do well.
Right. And they certainly weren't taken seriously, you know.
No. I mean, nobody took this one seriously until they saw it, and then they were like, oh, okay.
Yeah. They were like, oh, shit. But that was such a risky thing to do because in 78, the only people who had any idea of what was going on would have been the people who were the comic nerds at that time. Yeah. You know? They would have been like, oh, shit, that's Zod. He's been sent to the Phantom Zone.
Yeah.
Because there's no other mention of it or reference to it in Superman 1, you know? So that was interesting as well.
They're like, hey, man, I wonder where Marlon Brando just sent those guys. They didn't seem they want to go there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, anyway.
The child nudity. I forgot about that too.
Oh, yep. That's
And here's the crazy part about the child nudity. In Superman 2, and for the first 6 minutes of that movie, when they're doing the opening credits, they're giving you a recap of Superman 1 like no one fucking watched Superman 78.
Right.
And during the recap, they go back to the child penis. This is so fucking unnecessary.
Well, I will say that in that era, though, it seems like there was a little bit less of people freaking the fuck out over anything, you know, that seemed to be a little bit less censorship back then. I feel like it was in the years after that, you know, it became much more okay to show violence and way less okay to show sex.
Yeah.
And things. If you look at the history of media, those two things for some reason tend to teeter back and forth.
Yeah.
You know?
But I mean, it's that kid had to be 3 or 4, because by the way, guys, Clark Kent was not a fucking baby in this movie when he lands on Earth. He's a full-grown toddler.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is not an infant. Yeah. That is a 4-year-old kid.
Also, you guys didn't need to do this.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a naked. They also do this in the Moses movie that was really big around this time.
Yeah.
The one that's got 47 VHS tapes or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I forgot the guy's fucking name who was in it, but yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they did the same thing in that shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just wrap them up.
Just wrap them up, yeah. Wasn't he wrapped up in something?
Yeah. Why?
This is so unnecessary.
You don't see that shit at the supermarket where somebody just got a fucking naked ass baby. If you did, you would call the police.
Exactly. Just a few more things, and then we can move on from Superman 78, and that is, I said that for me, the movie really didn't start to get interesting to me until Christopher Reeve shows up, and I mean, and by and large, he is the star of the movie, obviously, but he feels like he's got the presence, he's got the pizzazz, and I didn't think that any of the casting was bad at all. I actually thought most of the casting was pretty damn good, but his was exceptional. However, the problem is, and I timed it, Christopher Reeves does not appear in the movie until the 49-minute mark. And this movie is billed as being 2 hours and 25 minutes. It's by far the longest of his Superman quadrilogy. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting that, we go damn near 50 minutes before we see Christopher Reeve show up here.
So, do you think it was... Because Donner only did the first 2, right?
Yeah, 1.5, you want to be technical.
Yeah, because he left her in the middle of the second one.
Kicked out, yeah.
Yeah, which was dumb, but...
It was. History repeated itself. Ain't that crazy?
Right? Yeah. Yeah. X-Men 97. Sorry, I was a little...
something.
Yeah, I had a little something. obviously, like Superman 3 is like a big drop in quality, and then Quest for Peace just goes off the deep end.
Oh my gosh!
It's kind of similar to how the 4 Batman movies were like 10 years after that.
How does that keep happening?
Yeah, the only difference is like Superman 2 was really good. Yeah, you know. So
we don't need to do this. We do not need to do this.
Listen, we're not going to dwell on this, but I think Returns is a fucking terrible film, and I encourage you that if you disagree with me, you should go watch it and tell me if you still think that it's like great cinema. Anyway,
Batman Returns is not terrible, folks. Batman 89 is way better, but okay. Anyway,
so. We could kind of sum up the quadrilogy here, and they actually also got a Supergirl movie in there.
Oh yeah,
in 84 or 94.
And what's funny is that you just knew.
No, it was 84.
It was 84.
84.
Okay, yeah. You just know that like when that Supergirl movie, they really wanted to or thought they were going to get Christopher Reeves to show up as a cameo.
Yeah,
and he was like, "I'm fucking done." Like. I don't know what they paid him for Quest for Peace, but apparently it was enough. But he doesn't even show up in the Supergirl movie.
No.
There's a picture of him. And
yeah.
Like, hey.
Yeah. Like, they're holding up to the camera. It's nuts, right? Like, I mean, this was like early Hollywood mindset. We think it's bad now, and it is. But you gotta think about back then. It's like 78. Okay, we get this Superman movie come out. Around this same time is when you have Star Wars. And Star Wars basically jump starts American cinema like crazy. This is the thing where it makes it like this is like the all-American thing everybody does is go to the movies, right? So the box office is absolutely cracking at this point. So then you also have Superman around the same time, and people are very hungry for this visual experience that you can go on. So I mean, obviously they made the first two. They made a boatload of fucking money, and they're like, well, shit, we need to make another one and another one, you know? And you're like, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter what the story is.
Right.
You know?
It's Superman. People will show up to see him now.
Yeah, just turn him out. All you got to do is have him punch some people or whatever.
Oh, my gosh. And it's crazy, right? Because the first one was really something special for its time. Nothing like that had ever really quite been done in the superhero genre. So you really understand why that one is lauded the way that it is. And the sequel, I think, is, in most regards, is right up there with the original. I do have a problem with Lois and Clark's relationship there. It's like, as accurate as it is, they miss some vital shit for me. And I'm like, bro, you should just leave her.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't like you at all. But she fucking loves Superman.
Right.
Anyways, the interesting thing about, like, Superman 2 is that, one, that turnaround time was super fucking quick. So, you know, you had the first one that came out in 78. Second one came out in 80. And that's pretty fucking quick. So, I don't know if they had any break in between when the first one came out and when the second one did.
Especially back then, like, how long it would take to put a movie out with, like, the effects and all that. Yeah.
And the first movie had I think it was 19 months was the production time on that. So, like, the first took a long fucking time to come out.
Yeah.
You know? So obviously, like, you know, we get Zod and his crew. What's interesting is that, like, Zod, he was already a thing in the comic books before these movies came out.
Right.
His cronies, however, they were made for the movie, and I know at least Ursa, like the woman in the group, she later on was adapted into the comic books. I'm not sure about Non, and that's the big dumb one in the 80 movie. But, like, Zod already had, like, goons from the comics that they could have used. As a matter of fact, in Man of Steel, we see Feora.
Yeah.
And she was already in the comic books from back in the day. But for whatever reason, they just decided to make their own people.
We'll just come up with our own.
Yeah.
And then later we got Nuclear Man.
And, oh, my gosh.
But, so let me ask you, what is the thing that you think that they didn't get about, like Hollywood didn't get about Superman back then, that you think they still don't get now? We haven't seen the James Gunn one yet.
Right. That is, I would say the one thing that they still haven't gotten down perfectly that we haven't seen so far is, well, shit, no, actually, I think Man of Steel got that a little bit, what I'm about to mention, and it is his struggle fitting in with humanity, like being raised amongst humans. Because like as good as the 78 and 80 movies are, like with Clark's portrayal, they just kind of almost gloss over the fact that he's like, yeah, I'm an alien, but I was raised by good people, so I'm good. And there really is like none of that internal struggle with fitting in or finding his place, or you don't see him understanding why he is a force of good.
It's basically like if a random human being woke up with these powers, for the most part.
Kind of, except a random human being would probably be an asshole if they woke up with powers.
Yeah. Hashtag Homelander. I did love where James Gunn pretty recently commented on like how, in the trailers for Superman, we see him getting the snot beat out of him.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I didn't want this, to be like a godlike Superman. And he's like, I see these debates online about who would win out of Superman and Homelander. And he's like, and I just think that is the absolute dumbest shit. And I was like, yeah.
I saw that too.
Yeah. And he was like, that's not a story. Like, you can't make a movie off of like that kind of thing. And we've been saying that for years over here,
Absolutely.
Like, it's interesting to have a discussion of like who would beat who in an interesting way and talk about like how their powers would interact. But when it comes to like the actual storytelling,
it's got no bearing on it.
Yeah, no, you can make that an aspect of your action. Mm-hmm. Sure, I mean, we want you to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like Justice League is a shit movie, but there's the one scene where they all fight Superman, and it's one of the best things in the whole movie because you actually get to see how like all their different powers and stuff interact with his.
Right.
Spoiler. Yeah. They get wrecked.
Yeah, totally get wrecked. And also, like, that was also a Zack Snyder scene.
Right, yeah. Yeah, exactly. That you can tell by the amount of slow-mo that they used. But for me, I think it is the power scaling. I think that Hollywood about Superman has always thought that the stronger we make him, the more people will like him. Mm-hmm. And I think that's incredibly flawed. It's actually the more human you make him, I think the more people will like him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And, you do have to appeal to his humanity, but you also have to appeal to the why.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer that why, then you really don't have that much of a story or character there. I don't say this in defense of these old movies. This is just more of me kind of wondering why they did certain things. Because, like, the shit that he does, that any of the Kryptonians do in those old school Superman movies, like the 78 and the 80 movie, I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? Yeah. The telekinesis, the invisible ray, the fucking, like, all of this, like, fucking rotating the world backwards. Like, where did any of this come from? And I had to think, okay, these movies came out 78 and 1980, referring to the first two Superman movies. Me being the comic book nerd that I am, I had to think about this, and I said, Crisis on Infinite Earths didn't come out until like 85 or 86. And the reason I bring that up is because Crisis on Infinite Earths, everything post-Crisis kind of nerfed Superman and made him more, okay, let's make him more streamlined. Let's make this more, suitable for what we want to do moving forward with this singular universe. Everything pre-Crisis, Superman was basically a goddamn Looney Tunes character.
Yeah.
In terms of what he could do. And these movies technically came out pre-Crisis, meaning that everything they went off of, Superman, if he sneezed, he could blow away a fucking universe, you know what I mean? Like, he could pull galaxies with a chain, Where'd you get a chain that big? Who knows?
It's like that fucking scene on Namek where like Goku reads Krillin's mind.
Yeah.
He like,
where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah, he never does that again, and he never does it before then.
Right. I still actually really enjoyed the Richard Lester cut of Superman 2, even though it to me it's the inferior cut, and we know this for certain because Richard Lester also made Superman 3.
Did he make 4?
I hope not. I don't know.
Because I think 3 is bad, and 4 is just abysmal. Like, the dumbest shit you could possibly imagine.
4 is Christopher Reeve showed up because they gave him a big-ass bag.
4 is directed by Sidney J. Furie, which is a cool-ass name.
That is a cool name.
Yeah, some pro wrestler needs to take that. That would be awesome. That's a dope-ass name. They were not a good director. Apparently, Gene Hackman was in this. Like, he came back for this?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman both in this. Wow. Yeah, the budget was $17 million.
Oh, wow.
And it only made $36 million.
Jesus. And that's crazy because I think the first one made, was it $202 million, something like that?
Let's see.
And
first one.
And that's in 1978 money?
Yeah, the first one had a budget of $55 and made $300.
Oh, $300. Okay.
Yeah. Which, I mean, back then, that was a ton of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second one had a budget of $54 million and made $216. And then $39 million on the budget, $80 million on the box office for the third one. So you can see they kept cutting the budget, and then the box office kept going down.
Right. Yeah, which is pretty insane there. But I couldn't bring myself to watch 3 or Quest for Peace for obvious reasons.
Right.
I just watched Fantastic, or I'm not subjugating myself to anything like that.
We can only take so much suffering at one time.
Exactly.
But I want to move on to the next era of popular Superman in media, and this is easily Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman, which aired from 93 to 97. This is the Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher. This show to me, regardless of the fact that Dean Cain is a fucking lunatic now, but this show to me was really like, I loved this show as a kid. And I think that it was really crazy that a superhero show was such a like prime time hit.
Yeah.
Back in this era in the 90s, because it was just so crazy, right? Because like the things that when you think about like popular 90s TV, everybody are automatically going to go Seinfeld, right?
Yep. Friends.
Family Matters, Bill Cosby Show. Yep. There's a recurring theme here. Yep. Things like that. Full House. I'm sure somebody from that did some fucked up shit too. The cast was so big that just the odds are.
Yeah.
One of them killed Heath Ledger. There we go. But it's just crazy to me that in with all that 90s TV, it's like there was a Superman show on. And this wasn't, tucked on fucking CW or whatever, which we'll go there in a minute. But, this wasn't on Nickelodeon or Sci-Fi or any of this shit. This was like, came on at like 8 p.m. prime time, like TV with all the, it was on the same networks with the sitcoms and laugh tracks and all that shit. And it was popular media.
Was Lois and Clark, 'cause I don't remember, was that show a 30-minute format or hour-long format?
I want to say it was an hour, but
that's what I remember, but I could be wrong.
They had 88 episodes. The pilot was 93 minutes, so they had an hour and a half.
Wow.
And then it was 42 to 47 minutes, so that's an hour, So they released 88 hours of Superman, a little more than that, actually.
Yeah. That's wild. I didn't watch this show that much, but I do remember watching some of it and, thinking that it's not half bad.
No, obviously, I think it holds up probably even less than, the movies did.
I mean, what the problem is that like he was the next live action Superman,
right?
And that's always going to be a difficult thing to kind of fill those shoes.
At least as far as like, the production values and things like that. Yeah. Like TV just wasn't produced like that back then.
Prestige TV didn't really become a thing until some years later. Like high budget prestige TV, that is.
Yeah.
Here's a fun fact for you and the homies. If it wasn't for the Lois and Clark TV show, we would have never got the Death of Superman comic book, which is one of the highest selling comic books of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah. The people who made that show, like, they got to the point where they were going to do like a wedding angle when Lois and Clark finally get married. Well, at the same time, the comic books, the people were in like the bullpen equivalent of DC. They were thinking about what to do with Superman, and they said, well, we have this idea of him getting married. And they said, well, we can't do that because they're going to do that in the TV show. And, the DC comic writers, they were kind of pissed because they'd been planning this for a while now.
Yeah.
And somebody, I forget who it was, someone said, well, why don't we just fucking kill him? But they said it as a joke. And then they were like, go on.
Yeah.
And so that spun out into the Death of Superman.
I remember that wedding episode, too. It was like a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like, they built up to it for forever. Interesting note. So the executive producer on Adventures of Lois and Clark, or Lois and Clark: New Adventures of Superman, his name is Robert Singer. He actually went on to produce Supernatural, and the character Bobby Singer in Supernatural is named after him.
Oh shit!
Yeah. Huh. So the more you know.
The more you know.
So yeah, this was like a huge TV thing. I will say, I think the last season is like not great, and probably none of it's great now. But what they were able to do, like with the constraints of TV at the time, I thought it was like really cool. And obviously, they can't go super heavy on the effects.
Yeah.
So what they did go super heavy on was the characters.
Yeah.
And I really liked Dean Cain as Superman. He was like my Superman when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't watch enough of it for me to really have any kind of affect towards him. But, yeah, I thought he looked pretty decent in the suit.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
Well, we can move right along to, like, the next major iteration of Superman, which would be Smallville.
Yes.
And this ran from 2001 to 2011.
It's a long-ass time.
Yeah, 10 seasons. On CW, 10 seasons, and this is like when a season of television was like 21 to 23 episodes, sometimes 24, 25. I will say, I think season 2 or 3 of this got truncated from the writer's strike.
Oh, okay.
What's crazy is like Supernatural actually was long enough, but Smallville was almost long enough to be affected by 2 writer strikes that were like 10 years apart. Supernatural actually was hit by both writer strikes.
Both of them?
Because they went like 14 seasons or something.
Oh, wow.
But
so they got hit by the one in, what was it, 06? No, 08?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because Supernatural was on, like, started airing while Smallville was still on.
Yeah, Supernatural was 05, I want to say.
Yeah, and then it's only been off the air since, like, right around when, like, The Boys started.
Yeah.
So it was on forever. But yeah, man, Smallville for me, though, I didn't get introduced to it until I think probably like a 07, 08. Mm-hmm. So I binged it. I mean, I spent probably a month just binging this show. Like every day, that was like what I would do is I would come home, get me some Din, throw on some Smallville, and like I think back then I had the DVDs or whatever.
Yeah.
And just watch. You just watch it. And it was, I'm not gonna say it was all hits, but it was very entertaining television.
And again, like if you look at superhero media, has kind of always been, in terms of live action entertainment, has always kind of been behind the curve a little bit.
Yeah.
But so to see Smallville become like the first kind of superhero TV show of that nature, you
Yeah.
know, it was a big deal. And thankfully, like, it was a blessing and a curse because it was good enough to give us like an entire universe on CW with DC characters,
Yeah.
you know. And if it wasn't for Smallville, then yeah, we wouldn't have a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't for Smallville, the Arrowverse never would have been born.
No.
And I mean, I know your knee-jerk reaction might be like, well, can we go back and delete it then? But I mean, you got to think, like, I think the first season of Smallville is tough to watch. It's very indicative of how TV was perceived back then. So it's very much a creature of the week.
Yes.
You know, serialized TV was not really a big thing yet. And if it was, you had to go to very specific places to get it. You know, you had like The Wire or like
Sopranos.
Rome. I don't think Sopranos would have been out yet, right? In 2001?
Oh, I think so.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Okay. It was early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
But around that time. So, yeah, I mean, you had to go on HBO, basically, to get serialized TV. And then eventually FX, like The Shield came out around this time. But, like, premium quality serialized TV, it wasn't so much a thing. And when it was shit like Gunsmoke or
oh my gosh,
whatever, you know?
Yeah, because like most television, to your point, was kind of made to cater to anybody. So if somebody hops in on episode 1 or episode 13, nobody feels lost or left behind.
Yeah.
You know?
They couldn't expect you to have seen the previous episode even. And even when other shows would do that, like if like I use Gunsmoke as an example, they would do like an arc over maybe 3 episodes. Like if there was a big deal, it'd be like, oh, okay, well maybe we're gonna have this guest star, maybe we're gonna have Bret Hart come on, and he'll come on and he'll play this character, and we'll shoot 3 episodes with him, and it'll draw in all these viewers because people that'll watch the first one will want to come back and watch 2 and 3, and then right after that they would go right back into like that shit never happened.
Yeah,
you know.
Isn't it crazy to think that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers actually had more serialization than a lot of other TV shows?
Well, because people of our generation wanted that. That's very much a thing that like the Gen X or millennials, you know, that's our thing, right? That's really the thing that like they started to cater to us because we wanted that serialized stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of it, I think, comes down to like how in TGIF, like when we were kids, we were talking about earlier, like Full House, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, like those type of shows, they would have these serialized arcs.
Right.
And it was the same thing with like Power Rangers. And if you look at it, like the early seasons of Power Rangers did kind of what I was just talking about, where the Green Ranger arc, right? That's 5 episodes. That's one arc. Any of the episodes before that, you can watch in any order.
Any order you want to. Yeah. You watch the pilot, any other episodes you want to, the Green Ranger stuff, and resume.
And then after that, the only reason you would know that shit happened is because Tommy would be there.
Yeah.
And that, I think it actually even took a while to have Tommy come back, right?
He had to come back after a while.
He was gone after a while.
Yeah.
Because that's probably, the original plan was probably for him to fuck off.
Yeah.
And then...
We're already paying these 5 teenagers $600 a week.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't pay a 6th one, especially if people really want to see him. And then he was so popular, though, that they probably had to go, oh, shit, and get him back.
Right.
You know? So, yeah, I mean, to Smallville's credit, back then, in the early seasons, you would have episode 1, then you would have about 7 creature of the week, or and back then on Smallville it was superpower of the week.
Yeah.
There should not be kryptonite anywhere, but every motherfucker in Smallville has some.
And it'd be all different flavors of kryptonite.
Yeah, and a motherfucker would be like, oh yeah, there was some kryptonite in my locker and now I like turn into a bee or whatever, you know? and that's just kind of how the episodes went. And then there'd be the mid-season finale, and some shit would happen, and then they would end you on a cliffhanger in the fall, so that in the spring when you came back for the second half of the season, you were like had to come back, and then that would turn out to be nothing, and then they would string you along for another like 15 episodes, and then the finale would be something, and that's how the first couple seasons really go. Until later on, they were like, okay, people really like the continuity, and so they started bringing in more things. They brought Aquaman into the show. They brought Flash into the show.
Cyborg.
Hawkman and Hawkgirl.
Yep.
That they actually were in it early. They actually did an arc with them.
Yeah, I think I remember those.
Before all that, yeah. Yep. They came back a few times.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because of how much they were able to do with that show and like within that show's own little micro universe. I will say this, like Smallville, or let me rephrase that. The show Gotham is a worse version of Smallville.
Right.
In a lot of regards. Smallville is definitely the better show. It's not even close, right? But to me, they both suffer from the same problems, which is like I'm getting all your greatest hits already, and you haven't even put on any tight shit.
Yeah.
And how long can we go on? How long are you going to be a goddamn teenager, and we're going to go on without you being who you should be at some point?
Approximately 240 or so episodes. And then we will show him in the suit for about 11 seconds.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I think that's one of the reasons why I build on the show kind of, not early. I think I stuck around for maybe, 7 seasons, 7 or 8 seasons.
Well, 7 seasons also is when Lex left.
Oh, yeah, I think I left at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of people did. The viewership, so the viewership actually fell off a cliff right after that. And a lot of that had to do with Michael Rosenbaum leaving, because he really was I don't want to say he was the star of the show, because I think Tom Welling did an amazing job as Clark. But the two of them together, their charisma, their relationship, and like the way that like Lex was on the show, it was stellar. I mean, it was like, The Rock and Stone Cold being in WWE at the same time. They just had lightning in a bottle for that amount for that amount of time. And the other thing too is like, obviously in the first couple of seasons, it's very much Clark and Lex, but they knew when to have Lex take a back seat for a little while and then let some other main villains come in, and he would always be there kind of in the background, and then he would come back into the foreground, and so like he never overstayed his welcome, and then he left, and they were like, oh no.
Yeah. But no, I think that Smallville really kind of reinvigorated a lot of people's energy in Superman.
I will say that season 8, despite its flaws and the fact that they try to do some dumb shit with Lex, right? Like, they really did these crazy, stupid things where, like, Michael Rosenbaum was gone. His character was dead on the show. But they would have some shit where it'd be like, some fucking ninjas would break into a place and like hold a bunch of people hostage, and then Clark would go save them, and then he would find like a Luthor Corp logo at the scene, and they'd be like, "Oh, Lex is still alive," and then they would like show a clearly not Michael Rosenbaum. they would take like a dude, I guess, that looked similar. They put like a bald cap on him, or get an actual bald guy, and he would have like a mask that would be up to here, and they would show him in this like truck giving commands on the computer or whatever. And they just tried to make it out like Lex had clones that he had created and all this shit, like to try to like keep Lex in the show, even though they didn't have Michael Rosenbaum. And it's like, no one gives a fuck if it's not him. Yeah. Especially in the context of this show. So it was ridiculous. But I will say, season 8, Sam Witwer was on. I got to meet him last year, which was awesome.
Was he the Doomsday?
Yeah, he was Doomsday. And because it was on CW and the budget, they had to do this whole thing where like Doomsday was actually like inside of a person. Yeah. And like he was basically like a werewolf. It's just instead of a wolf, he turned into Doomsday. And I'm like, how does all that fit in? How do you turn into this and then turn back into that and be like, okay? Yeah. But despite them having to do that, he did a great job. Like it was a cool way for them to do Doomsday. Now, obviously, they did not have the money to do the fight. The actual fight, they built up that shit all season, and it's like maybe 30 seconds, you know. And the whole budget was the fight.
Oh, I pulled that stunner timer too. Hey, girl, I'm about to fuck you. You don't even know what's about to happen.
We sexted for like 2 months. We're like, we're out of budget.
Well, you know, yeah, we're out of budget. Time restraints, you understand.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to skip to it.
Yeah, I'll catch you next time.
Yeah. Was we racing? You lost.
You're not first, you're last.
That's right. But, yeah, man, it was okay. Like, season 8, you know, they did Doomsday. Season 9, they brought Zod back. And actually, I thought that the second Zod season was actually better than the first season. A lot of that had to do with the fact that, yeah, okay, after 7, they're in Metropolis. Like, they're not in Smallville anymore.
That's right.
And they're in Metropolis now, and they could do a lot with that. But they also did a whole lot of bullshit where, like, he dressed in, like, a black trench coat and shit, dressed up like Neo, and they called him the Blur.
The Blur, I remember that.
And you were just like, just put him on the suit and let him be Superman, goddammit.
He's in Metropolis. He's saving people. Just fucking pull the trigger.
And the problem was that Tom Welling looked ridiculous in the suit. Because he was a big old, like, beefy, you know, Kansas boy.
Sometimes you got to get a different suit then. You know? Like, alter the suit so it looks less goofy on him.
Yeah. Yeah, y'all could have done something. Shit.
Yeah.
So, in the middle of all this shit, and I will comment one last thing on Smallville. Season 10, fucking atrociously terrible. Ooh. Like, it is pure garbage. I think it is worse than the Justice League. Like,
oh no,
it is like season 10. Like, I appreciate 8 and 9. 10 is like Quest for Peace level bad.
Wow.
Like, they did jokingly we call it Lionel Side, where Darkseid was going to be the villain.
Oh,
and they pulled a fucking parallax basically, and like Darkseid is a flock of crows.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And like he possesses Lionel Luthor and he's the villain.
Wow.
And yeah, the entire season is basically just like it's slop for CW.
That is okay, so I give them a pass on Doomsday. You know, as much as I don't want to. I understand budget restraints. You know, you can only do so much with Darkseid or with Doomsday. But come on, man, if you're gonna introduce Darkseid, you gotta do something correct. You know, a flock of birds, crows, whatever.
Yeah, it was terrible.
And then the fact that like they possess Lionel, so they don't even get a new actor. Like you just get a possessed Lionel Luthor.
Yeah. That's all you get. And like this is like the Darkseid scenes. And it's atrociously bad. Oh no. It's just him standing there talking in front of what is clearly a terrible green screen effect.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's rough, man. And all of the fight sequences, right, that they had with him and Darkseid, is this all like he puts him in like the Twilight,
oh no,
you know, fighting him in his mind and making him see flashbacks to when the show was good.
Were there any kind of Omega beams?
No, I don't think there's ever any actual Omega beams.
That would be like an actual effect that they could do. Maybe not great, but they could have done Omega beams, you know?
Yeah, there is actually, I think, a deleted scene where they actually showed like real Darkseid.
Oh, really?
But it never actually made it into the show. Let me see if I can find that. Because it was like they thought it was dumb, and so they were like, we're just going to have him keep being like the Crow Cloud or whatever. But yeah, this is the scene that they cut, and that's like all that you saw of him. But like even that looks better than just Lionel's face.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been better, you know.
Yeah, so in the actual show, when they do this kind of scene where he's like groveling or whatever, like the shadow crows fly out of him, and then he like dies.
Oh my! Wow.
Yeah.
That's
you see as he's just like a smoke cloud or whatever. Yeah,
that's straight up like Parallax, Galactus from Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Yeah, it's awful sauce. It's absolutely awful sauce.
But again, like at least the people that made Rise of the Silver Surfer never said the name Galactus.
Right.
You know.
No, they straight up call him Darkseid. And in the first episode, when they drop Darkseid in like the beginning of season 10, you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
okay. They're going out with the bang. They do not like. There's not anything in season 10 that's good. They even try to do this like noir episode where it's all in black and white and it's just Clark and Lois in like a library for like 40 minutes. It's terrible, dude. I'm telling you, it's atrocious. Yeah. So anyway, Michael Rosenbaum is amazing. While Smallville was on, they came out with another Superman movie, which was Superman Returns.
Superman Returns, starring Brandon Routh and directed by Bryan Singer.
And this was a weird quasi pseudo sequel where
To Superman 2.
Yeah, where they basically tried to ignore Superman 3 and 4. Can't blame them for that. And they tried to make like a new Superman 3 like 20 years later.
Yeah. There was a lot weird about that whole concept. And so first of all, so much of the concept is built around the fact that Brandon Routh resembles Christopher Reeves.
And he does.
Yeah, he does. Now, the other thing that they have to bank on is that, because this movie came out in 2006, if I remember correctly.
It did.
So, by that point, like, if you had seen the first two actual Superman movies, like, it had been a while. There's a large fucking gap.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to believe that those two movies exist in the same world, that those three movies exist in the same world.
They didn't do a good job with it.
No.
The plot is crazy.
It's not good, man.
The trailers for this movie are awful to the point where what was it, superhero movie or whatever, like parodied it. The shit with the bullet hitting him in the eye is like one of the most moronic fucking things. But it goes right back to what I was saying earlier. It's like Hollywood has always had this fascination with Superman, where it's like the stronger we make them, the more people like them. So in the trailer, we're gonna show somebody shoots him with a machine gun in the eye, and he doesn't even blink.
I didn't even have a problem with that. It's the fact that that's kind of the money shot of the movie.
Yeah.
If
you've seen the trailer for this movie, you've seen everything in it that's worth anything.
Yeah.
And that shot looks atrocious these days.
Yeah, and it doesn't hold up very well. He has a superpowered son with Lois.
The one great thing this movie gives us, do we still have the button?
Yeah. Which button?
The button for this movie. There we go. That's the best part of the movie.
Got it.
Right there. This is where we put the disclaimer that this podcast does not support the actions of Kevin Spacey. And at the time this movie came out, we did not know he was creepy as fuck.
Yeah. We might have known he was creepy, but we didn't know he was like that kind of creepy.
Yeah. He was a great Lex Luthor, though.
He was.
Yeah. The script is terrible, and as we just recently saw at Fan Stick, doesn't matter how good your cast is if your script is bad.
Yeah, there was just not a whole lot about this movie that I could enjoy. Like, wasn't there some kind of giant piece of kryptonite or some bullshit like that?
He makes a whole island out of kryptonite.
That's right. Yeah. So what the fuck is, like, that's not even kryptonite no more. That's a goddamn, because kryptonite is supposed to be radiated shards of your planet. That's a whole goddamn island.
Yeah, he basically brought like a chunk of Krypton there. And it was some bullshit. It was basically the Lizard Man plot from Amazing Spider-Man, but just with kryptonite. Oh, well, if you can't be here without the kryptonite, then I'm going to turn everything into kryptonite.
It was pretty fucking moronic. Yeah, man, like... Yeah, this whole movie, I thought that the pacing in it was bad. I thought that the story was so bland. I was bored. I was bored watching that movie. Yeah, and poor Brandon Routh, I feel like he gets kind of a raw deal in this movie. Maybe there is a universe where he gets a better script and can do something interesting as Superman.
I liked him as the Atom.
Yeah. Yeah, in the Arrowverse, yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest, man. Yeah, this movie has always been bad. I'm sure it hasn't gotten any better with time. And the other crazy thing, too, is like by the time it came out in 2006, you already had a young fan base that was absolutely in love with Tom Welling as Clark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you've been watching Smallville, like if you're a huge Superman fan and you have to absorb everything Superman, if you've been watching Smallville for what, 5 years at this point?
Yep.
And you and 5 years in, Smallville was cracking. Like those like seasons, I think 4 through 6 are like peak. When it was just really on it. And you go see this, you're not getting any of the things that you love out of this.
Yeah.
You know? You're not getting the connections between the characters. You're not getting that charismatic cast that you love. You're not getting a good Clark Kent. Like, you're just not getting any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember who played Lois Lane in this.
Me either.
But obviously, like, I really enjoyed the Lois in Smallville, and I really enjoyed Terry Hatcher's version. Because the other thing too is, in the Terry Hatcher version in New Adventures of Lois and Clark or whatever, they never treated her like a bimbo or a fuck puppet or any of that stuff that like female roles were very typically cast as back then.
Right.
And the same thing with, I really should remember her name, but that plays Lois in Smallville as well.
Well, how many seasons in is it before Lois shows up?
I think 4.
Yeah.
Lana is very much the focus for a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then they actually did something really smart. Like, they have Lois show up, and then she's not his love interest for a while. But I really love the way that they did Lois in this, and then they move in together when they go to Metropolis.
So. I have always wondered, like, what is it with Superman and like his relationship with the people that have LL initials?
Yeah.
You know, so there's Lana Lang, who was his first love, and then there's Lois Lane, who was, of course, his main squeeze, and then there's Lex Luthor, which is, you know, Lex Luthor. I'm like, this is, at what point, like, is this just, y'all are doing this on purpose now, you know?
Kristen Cruick was unbearably awful as Lana Lang in Smallville. But I love that Lex, I swear to God, like, he had to have called up Eobard Thawne in the Smallville universe. Because what he does to Clark is so fucked up. Basically, he gets this, like, of course he's Lex Luthor, so he can just summon a fucking, you know, diabolical machine that'll do things. But he wrote kryptonite into Lana Lang's DNA. So, like, Clark can't be anywhere near her.
Wow.
Yeah, there's like a layer of kryptonite in her skin.
Damn.
Yeah. It's fucking petty as shit.
That is petty. It was Kate Bosworth who played Lois Lane in Superman Returns.
Yeah, don't even remember it.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yep. Not to backtrack us all the way back, but us talking about Lana Lang, she is actually in the 78 movie.
Is that right?
Yeah. There's a segment where we get like high school Clark, and it's funny because like they were smart enough. They were like, we can't cast, you know, Christopher Reeves as high school Clark. You know, like he would just, first of all, he would tower over like everyone else, and like
hello, fellow kids.
Yeah, hello, fellow youth. But the guy who they got, like, he still looks like he's about 30.
Yeah. Morgan Freeman is a young Clark Kent. Like, what?
What do we get after Superman Returns?
Superman Returns, then our next thing would be there was 2 Superman properties on at the same time, and that would have been both Supergirl and Krypton, which Supergirl is actually where the Tyler Laughlin
that's right.
Superman began.
Yep.
And did you ever watch any of the Krypton show on Sci-Fi?
I did not.
I didn't either, so I guess we really can't speak on it. I have heard that it was okay.
Yeah, all I know is that it is about not Jor-El, but I guess Jor-El's dad, I think.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I can't really imagine, like, what they did because, like, you know, Red Sun, they're just normal people.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, but yeah, like you, I heard it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a sci-fi political drama.
Yeah.
I mean, but it only lasted 2 seasons.
Two seasons, yeah.
But Supergirl, I was hit or miss with. I really liked the actress that they got to play her.
Yeah. Melissa Benoist.
Yeah, I think I will say that I think that that Millie is going to blow her out of the water. I really love her as an actress, so I'm so excited for that movie.
Yeah.
Melissa Benoist I thought did a great job. I thought that they did a really good job with this character of making her distinct from Clark.
Yeah.
And then when they actually finally did bring Clark into the show, I really enjoyed his Superman also.
Not to jump ahead, but I haven't seen that Superman and Lois show. But again, like I've heard that it's maybe that is one of the best CW shows. And I know that bar sounds not,
yeah,
but like I've heard that it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, basically from what I've understood, and take this with a grain of salt because everybody that said this to me, they are Superman fans, and I am not, and I also tend to think that most Superman fans, not this one, they are that. A lot of them are that other toxic fandom that we talked about,
where everything is
like, well, Superman in it, he was strong as fuck, so it was good, fam. It was dope, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
I'd be like, so was it awesome to be like, yeah, there's this one scene where like Superman picks up a building, and then the other building next to him starts to fall, so then he reaches out with his other hand and picks up that building, and I'm like, and then they're like, yeah, and he puts the buildings back. And I'm like, oh, you know that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Or like he punches this one guy so hard. All right. Yeah. Okay.
And then what?
Yeah, but I have heard that kind of as the Arrowverse like just tanked, like this was like the good show.
Yeah.
And they really distanced themselves from the Arrowverse.
They did.
Yeah, they were like, nah, that shit's on fire over there. We're okay. We're okay.
Good over here.
Oh, you want us to show up for Crisis on Infinite Earths or whatever? Yeah, we'll show up for that and get the paycheck. We're out though. We're out. And they did have some cool shit in that. They had Tom Welling.
Yeah, Tom Welling came back. Brandon Routh showed up as like Superman from Kingdom Come, which is a pretty famous storyline.
That was a cool little thing that they did there. And then, the man himself was actually in it as well.
Kevin Conroy, man, that was pretty epic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved seeing that happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, didn't he play like an old Bruce Wayne?
It actually, just like Brandon Routh played Superman from like Kingdom Come, they had Kevin Conroy play Batman from Kingdom Come, the same comic book.
Right.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
And Tom Welling's Superman had like given up his powers or whatever.
And it was Lex from the newest TV show.
Yeah,
who was talking shit to him, but I guess he forgot that like Tom Welling is still a fucking giant human being.
Yeah, he was like,
yeah, I don't really need kryptonite I don't need superpowers to beat your ass. So
I did not love that Lex. He was very like smarmy, But I really liked a lot of the stuff in Supergirl. Obviously, it got kind of crazy. They did a lot of, apparently her and the guy that played Barry.
Grant?
Grant Gustin. Yeah, apparently they're really tight, and they did a lot of crossover episodes with each other. Yeah. They actually did a musical. They have a musical episode together.
I'm not surprised. This not surprising me at all.
Yeah. Supergirl was kind of interesting too, right? Because it originally actually started on CBS.
Yeah, and then it got migrated over to CW.
Yeah. So I really liked Calista Flockhart as Cat Grant when it was on CBS.
Yeah.
That was cool as hell. She actually did a really good Cat Grant. I know that's not a high bar to be like, oh, this is the best version of Cat Grant. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like Jimmy O'Houlihan, like we're the main source of this. But Cat Grant, though, is a fairly major character, Justice for Jimmy.
Justice for Jimmy.
But I thought that she did a great job, like in those early CBS days, because this is when CBS is churning out just fucking garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much everything after Lost, and feel how you want to about Lost on CBS. It's been pretty rough. Yeah. Was that ABC? CBS?
I thought the show was on ABC, but it might have been CBS.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, everything on CBS has been pretty shit. It's been mashed potatoes with no gravy, no salt, nothing, no pepper.
Oh man, that's retirement home food.
Yeah, and it ain't natural mashed potatoes either. It's that powder.
The powder, the Idaho potato mix.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, and they ain't putting no milk in there. It's straight water,
no.
tap water.
Don't even give it to me.
Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to get to. But yeah, I mean, I think that they, like, what I know about this show, and like I've seen the characters and the way they're portrayed, and I always thought that was pretty good. And I thought that Tyler looked good in the suit too. Yeah, you know, and as he did a good job as Clark.
Yeah, you know, one of these days, like when I don't have a goddamn full-time job, I might sit down and watch it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's like when I just have hours and hours to fuck around and watch TV.
When I have so much ample time to kill. Yeah.
So let me say as well, we gotta backtrack a little bit now because we've really talked about all of the TV. While all this is going on, the DCEU is getting off the ground, and they kicked it off also with a Superman movie, which is kind of why it's a bold ass choice to do that again here. And that's Man of Steel, what kicked off the DCEU. And this was interesting because we had come off of the wildly successful Nolan Batman trilogy. Mm-hmm. And I think Warner Brothers wanted to do anything they possibly could to feed off of that. Yeah. They wanted to inject as much of that as they humanly possibly could into Man of Steel, to the point that they got Christopher Nolan as the executive producer. That's as close as he would get to it. Because they really tried, y'all. They tried to get Nolan back. They tried to get Batman.
Oh my gosh.
Christian Bale. Yeah, they tried to get Christian Bale back and Gary Oldman. Pretty much all three of them said the same thing, like, I won't do it unless you can get the other two. Yeah. And I want a fuck ton of money, and I really don't want to do it. So, and they all pretty much said that. And as we all know, Christopher Nolan went on to do other things. Like, all three of them went on to do other things. And so this is where the world really got introduced to Henry Cavill. Yeah. You know?
I think he was on Tutors before this.
Yeah. Yeah. This was before he used to cock his arms before he would punch you. We will disagree wildly about this movie, I think.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a fan. I think the tornado scene in this is one of the worst scenes in cinematic history. I just really hate the way it's shot tremendously. Like, I think it is insanely stupid. And what I don't like about Zack Snyder's Superman is that Zack Snyder wants Superman to be a god among us. And don't get me wrong, that is what he is and should be. Mm-hmm. But like the level of power that Zack Snyder took it to, it's like he was like, well, my Superman's gotta be the strongest Superman. He's gonna be stronger than all the other Superman. You know, like you could just hear him. I don't know why he sounds like Vince McMahon, right. But you can just hear him kind of saying that. And I love that we got a movie where we could finally see Superman's power, and we finally had the technology and the budget to see him actually fight other Kryptonians. Right. Because anytime in this, all these other properties we've talked about tonight, folks, whenever Superman fought someone, it was very short for the most part.
It's very short, and it was very, boy, let me tell you, watching the 1980 Superman movie where he's fighting the three Kryptonians, it's, I guess it's one of those things you had to be there in the time, you know? Yeah. Because, like, watching it now, it was like, yeah, man, I appreciate what you're trying to do for me.
So you should have went forward and watched his fight with Nuclear Man.
Oh, no.
If you really wanted the cinematic action.
You know, I completely see where you're coming from, and I even agree with some of it, right? Like, for me, the tornado scene, I don't even think it's shot bad. I think the concept of it is bad.
Yeah, because Zack wanted to make his Superman like, you know, like the strongest character on Earth, faster than the Flash. You know, like he just wanted to make him, you know, anything you can do, his Superman can do it better. You know, that kind of thing. And like in the fucking awful Justice League, it's like he is faster than Barry, like way faster. Like Barry leaves like way before him, and then he catches him like that. You know what I mean?
That is not in the Snyder Cut.
That's not in the Snyder Cut. No, that is in the Justice League. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, that's kind of thing they try to do. So it's like, okay, well, you made your Clark in that fast. Why can't he just zip over there and get his dad and the dog real quick and then, like, go right back to where he was at?
Yeah. And again, it's like, I think that part is done, but that's not even the part that bothers me. It's the idea of you know, Jonathan Kent having this kind of candor with his son. You know, there's a scene earlier in the movie when Clark saves, you know, I think it's a bus of kids, and you know, his dad is kind of chastising him about it, in which that is very, very much in line with what John would do. Like, you had to be very careful, you know, because if the wrong people see you do this, it could be real big trouble, you know, for all of us. But it's his response to Clark that never sat well with me when Clark says, well, was I supposed to let them die? And Pa Kent says, I don't know, maybe. Like, I just think that's super fucking grim. And if nothing else, you have to remember that this is a character of hope and resolution. I do think that, like, for me, where this movie dropped the ball was with the Pa Kent stuff. Whereas, like, the original Christopher Reeves movies almost flat out ignored Pa Kent and his involvement and Clark becoming Superman. I feel like Man of Steel kind of misinterpreted it.
Yeah.
I never had a problem with the power scaling in this movie because he's clearly not the only one who's that powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense where they kind of gimped the other Kryptonians because they, like, obviously, if they're at the same power level, Zod should beat him every time, right? Mm-hmm. Because
he's a general.
He's a fucking... All these guys are like the special... Kryptonian special forces. You know? But they did the whole thing where, like, they weren't used to the Earth's gravity and atmosphere and all that, and so that sort of made it where Clark could be on an even standing with them. I'm with you, like, the way they portrayed Pa Kent here is they portray him more like an obstacle for Clark than what he really is supposed to be, which is like he's supposed to be an inspiration for Clark.
Yeah.
Where, and this is where Smallville did such a great job with it, is like Clark's sense of like what is like good and decent about humanity comes from his parents and mainly his dad in most iterations of it, where he's like, my dad would have done this, so this is what I want to do. And you do not see that in this movie. It's really not part of the movie at all, and the movie suffers immensely for it.
Yeah.
But if you want to see him fight some Kryptonians, though.
But I do think, again, that this movie does some things really, really well with the character of Superman. And that is, like I mentioned earlier, his fight with his own humanity or maybe lack thereof. Because, like, you can't just go from I'm an alien, oh well, I live amongst the humans, therefore I'm human. You know, you can't just go from that kind of A to Z that quickly. Like, there has to be some kind of middle ground there where he's trying to find himself. And that's what a lot of this movie is him literally trying to find himself and figure out who he is and what his place in this world should be.
Yeah.
I've always really liked that because, of course, Superman would have this conversation with himself. Like, there shouldn't be that notion of, well, I'm going to do this because I was taught this. It needs to be this idea of, okay, but where did I come from and why am I here? And who is it that I'm supposed to be? And so, like, it's an area of the movie that I often think is overlooked because, like, what the fuck is more relatable than somebody who is entering adulthood trying to find themselves?
Yeah.
And in the realest way, Clark is trying to do that.
Yeah, I think so. I do enjoy that aspect of this movie where you kind of see him go out and like he travels around and lives and does like different like human jobs and like lives among the humans to try to like find his place in the world. And you can tell that he struggles with that. And I love Henry Cavill's portrayal of him. I always have. He looks the part.
Oh, yeah.
And he plays the part well. The thing I dislike about Zack Snyder's Superman immensely is that Clark Kent doesn't exist. Ever.
See, a couple of things about that. It's like, one, I don't know if I agree with that. And two, just like with the Batman, I don't know how much I need of the alter ego. And it's simply because it's like this. If I pick up a comic book, not every issue needs to be Batman. Oh, not every issue needs to be Bruce Wayne. Not every issue needs to be Clark Kent. I'm fine if I get something that is focused 80 or 90% on the superheroic side.
Like, I would be completely fine with, like, okay, Justice League movie. Mm-hmm. All right, Clark Kent doesn't need to be in that.
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
There's too much going on. Clark Kent can't get a storyline in the Justice League movie. Neither can Bruce. You know? And if you are, you know, it's going to be like, oh, you know, billionaire Bruce Wayne goes missing again, blah, blah, you know.
Skiing incident, you know,
that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, at the end of the movie, you show Clark writing the story about what happened, you know, whatever. Something clever like that they never fucking did. But to me, from the moment that he first puts the suit on in the DCEU, Clark Kent dies right there. And he's just always Superman after that. Like, if you look at Batman versus Superman, right? Mm-hmm. He's just Superman through that whole movie. Even when he's in the suit and acting like a reporter, he's just Superman the whole time. There's no personality change whatsoever for that. For him to, like, for you to believe that there's two different people. It's just not. It's just Superman in a tux versus Superman in his suit.
Yeah. No, and I get that. But I don't know how much room for like the kind of bumbling I'm pretending to be human there is in this type of in that type of universe.
I don't know that he's necessarily got to be bumbling, but they could show him being like a good reporter. You know, there's that scene where him and Bruce first meet up.
Yeah.
And they just instantly have angst.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously they're trying to hint in the movie that they already know who each other are.
Right.
Right. Or at least Bruce already knows who Clark is, if not both, right? So like they just instantly did this kind of tension, and I think that would have been a perfect moment for you to have Clark legitimately at least feign being naive, or, you know, like he's there to be a reporter, and he's like, oh, you know, Bruce Wayne, wow, it's really nice to meet you, you know, kind of fanboy over him a little bit, and then like, oh, I got some questions if you got a minute, you know, something like that, and not just, I'm motherfucking Superman, dog, like, you know.
Well, I mean, he doesn't technically do that, but he does. He actually does what a lot of reporters or journalists would do, which is kind of strong arms the conversation. So what is it about this bad vigilante in Gotham? How come, you know, what's the deal with that? You know, he takes more of the, I don't want to say gotcha reporter-isms, but he is more of a strong arm approach. And what I like about this scene is that at first, Bruce plays it off like Bruce Wayne. Where are you from? The Daily Planet? Do I own that one? You know, which canonically he does.
Yeah, right.
But then as the conversation rolls on, he lets the facade down, and then you have Batman and Superman in public,
right?
You know, kind of dressing each other down. But no, I do see like why you you know, don't like this interpretation of like Clark Kent in this universe.
I don't need him to be like Steve Urkel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think I even really want that. But you know, I do think I'm gonna like the way that James Gunn is doing it.
Yeah.
You know, he's got this kind of sloppiness to him.
He does.
Where he's not in on the joke, right? And it's maybe some shit he would actually do, like, okay, well, I can't use my fucking super speed, so, oh shit, I'm at the meeting late because I gotta walk. In my mind, I gotta walk at like 1,000th of the speed I can move. You know, that kind of thing. Where it's like, I mean, he's a fish out of water.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of thing, I think, is a great way to show Clark Kent in this day and age, and not the whole, like, you know, pocket protector, I've dropped my stapler, that, you know, slipped on a banana peel, all that shit, you know.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like, I don't have a problem with that version of Clark. I just think that oftentimes Superman doesn't get the same kind of grace that Batman does. And what I mean by that is people often recognize that there are so many different versions and interpretations of Batman, but in people's minds there can only be one type of Superman, you know. And like, I think that there's definitely room for the different types or different interpretations of what Superman can and should be. And like when I look at Mr. Corenswet, like what I've seen in the trailers at least, like I like what I see, like from his Superman and his Clark, and they are definitely very distinct and different. His Clark reminds me a whole lot of Reeves.
Yes.
And I dig that.
Yeah.
But I think that like his Corenswet, that is, I think that his is also going to be very much pulling from like All-Star Superman, which they mentioned. And also recently James Gunn, he did drop Superman for All Seasons, a book that I mentioned a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because
he must have watched the show.
He must have, yeah. You know, what can I say? I think that those interpretations of Clark are going to be very much in line with this new Superman movie. Other than that, though, it also feels like the one scene we got in the second trailer when he's being interviewed by Lois, and she's asking those kind of hard-hitting questions, and we see Clark kind of get worked up, and it's like, this is something that's a little new here.
Yeah,
you know,
because he's normally very flat.
Yeah,
on purpose.
Yeah, but I like the fact that we're going to see like. I think that's the more human side of him getting worked up as he should, you know.
You were talking about something very interesting a minute ago about how, like, you know, with Superman, it's obvious, like people are very kind of rigid in what they want Superman to be, whereas with Batman, there's a lot of like kind of leeway on that, and that Bruce gets a lot better treatment than Clark typically does, and I think the reason for that is because Hollywood typically cast Superman to be Superman. They typically cast Batman to be Bruce Wayne. They go out and go, who can we get to be Bruce Wayne?
Yeah.
And then we can put the fucking suit on him.
Right.
Whereas with Superman, they want a dark-haired, tall, fucking, you know, jacked white dude, you know. And then, okay, well, does he look good in a fucking tux? Oh, we don't know, you know. Yeah. Put these tights on him.
Yeah.
All right. Underwear or no underwear? That's usually about as far as we go.
Well, the question, Caleb, and something we looked over is that did Nick Cage look good in either?
Oh my God! I was like, we're gonna get to Superman now, but then how could we not talk about Superman Lives?
Yes.
Bonus section, folks.
Oh boy.
So there have been 6 major live action Superman movies. There was, of course, the Supergirl movie that we mentioned, and then there was a bunch of Superman movies in the 50s that we cannot be bothered to watch. We're so sorry. If somebody picks that shit for the throwback, I'm gonna throw hands.
I'm canceling it.
Yeah. That will not be a segment any longer. So we kind of need to talk about the movie that almost was.
Yep.
And there's a documentary on this. It's called The Death of Superman Lives. And in The Flash, they actually made a very large reference to this. It's actually the only part of that movie I think I enjoy. And Nicolas Cage was supposed to play Superman. This movie was going to attempt to do a somewhat shared universe, where they were going to do the Doomsday storyline. They were going to do Death of Superman. And then at the end, they were going to try to get Batman to actually show up. I think it was either going to be Kilmer or...
I didn't even think about which one it was going to be. Or Clooney?
No, it was or Keaton.
Or Keaton.
Kilmer or Keaton. Because I think it was between those two movies. Like, I don't think they had officially replaced Keaton yet. Right. But basically, they were going to have Batman, like, hack into the TVs of Metropolis and be like, don't worry, you're
the savior of your city has died, but hope still carries something like
yeah,
that.
Yeah, like we will protect you, blah blah blah. And then they were gonna have him come back, and he was gonna be in the black suit or whatever. And judging by the way that this movie and I mean John Peters, if you watch the documentary, he clearly was in the stronger Superman is, the cooler he is, and more people will like him camp.
And polar bears, yeah.
Yeah, well, polar bears are the strongest warriors in the animal kingdom.
Predator, and yeah, of course.
And it is, I'm telling you guys, the documentary is an amazing watch. There is like so much shit. Like, if you don't feel like watching the 2-hour documentary, just go on YouTube and look up Kevin Smith talking about it. And it's fucking tremendous. Like, if you watch the 94 Fantastic Four and the documentary about that, this takes that shit to a whole different level.
Yeah, I think that The Death of Superman Lives doc is more entertaining than what that movie would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually probably better than all but 3 of the Superman movies.
yeah, easily. I mean, if you guys want tales of giant spiders, polar bears protecting the Fortress of Solitude, weird Brainiac designs.
They didn't want Superman. They didn't want to see him in the suit. They didn't want him flying.
Yep.
And what was the other thing?
I think those were the 2 major things. Right?
And then he wanted him to fight a giant spider.
Yeah. I mean, what the fuck was John Peters thinking? Like, I always go back to that question. By the way, homies, like, this is, I guess, almost 4 years ago, but we did review this on the podcast.
We did.
Yeah, it's a very interesting.
He was probably thinking, I got to call Carrie Fisher and get her to mix me up some more of that stuff.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, for those of you who don't know, John Peters, is he still?
No.
Okay, yeah. He is no longer any kind of producer of any sort, apparently, thankfully. But he got his start being Barbara Streisand's hairdresser.
Yeah.
And the man did have good hair in the documentary. I give him that.
He does. Yeah. Kevin Smith is the star of this thing, though.
Yes.
Yes. Hearing him talk about it is crazy. It's very much like if you ever seen the Chappelle Show, Rick James, where they cut back and forth like to Kevin Smith talking about some shit, and then they cut to John Peters and they ask him about it. He's like, "Nah, I never did anything like that." And then they'll like show some footage, other footage of John Peters confirming that he did exactly that.
Yeah. So case in point, like when Kevin Smith said the shit about. He gave his treatment for the movie, and then he got the notes about like, well, we don't want him in the suit, and we don't want him flying. And Kevin Smith was like, "The fuck,"
Yeah.
And then John Peters, he doesn't try to deny it, but he tries to skirt by it.
Yeah.
And
he's like, "Well, I can remember that a script was turned in, and with any script, we would have had some feedback on that, and we probably would have made some notes."
Yeah. Are you serious? And then, homies, if you're not familiar with this doc, you might be thinking, well, who was going to direct? None other than Tim Burton was attached to it.
And when they interviewed Tim Burton is only in the documentary for 10 minutes tops.
Yeah.
But when they interviewed Tim Burton, it's at his house, and Tim Burton's the inside of his house looks exactly like you would picture the inside of Tim Burton's house looking. He's in like a dark room.
Yes.
There's like a single, maybe 10-watt light bulb above him, just so you can see like his face. And the whole rest of the room is like pitch fucking black.
Yes.
And he has shades on in this room.
You would think that this documentary was some kind of spoof if you didn't know any better. It's not. It's real.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That being said, man, do you want to... talk about the
let's talk about the actual thing here. That is 2025 Superman, formerly known as Superman Legacy. Yeah, so this movie right here, we've said this time and time again, but there's so much writing on this. I don't want to sound melodramatic, but yeah, the future of DC live action properties to a degree does hinge on the success of this movie.
I like what James Gunn said about it, because originally I was like, why would you start with Superman again? Like, they did it last time.
Yeah.
The DCEU is a colossal failure.
Right.
You know who is the moneymaker. Like, just start with Batman, right? And then build. Because that's what people wanted anyway. They wanted Nolan's Batman to build the DCEU. But there's no way they were going to get Christian Bale for like 40 movies or whatever.
Absolutely not.
But if he had signed on, they probably would still be making movies.
Yeah.
And, they probably would still be making money. But he would have left after some of that bullshit they pulled.
Oh, yeah.
Especially after fucking Joss Whedon came in there and popped off at him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think, Christian Bale would have fist fought him.
Yeah. He'd have been like, I'm John Connor, motherfucker. And Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, James Gunn though changed my opinion on it, and he said, if we can't get Superman right, then there's no reason for us to do this.
Yep.
And I agree with him. Like, if you can't get people to buy into your Superman, then you've kind of already lost the battle with making this DC universe. Mm-hmm. And while there are 8 officially announced movies for this, I promise you, if this thing does not make money, there will not be 8.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like, Supergirl will come out probably either way because they've already shot it.
Yes, they've already shot it.
And Clayface is probably going to happen because they're already, I think it's in active production right now.
Active production and a low budget. So.
Right. And it's a unique thing. Like, they could probably, he's probably going to have very few connections to the rest of this stuff.
Yeah. When I think about the Superman movie, I think about what I've seen in the trailer so far, and I gotta admit, I am very impressed. I know one common concern that I've been seeing is, like, how are they going to balance there being so many different characters in this? Obviously Superman, Lex, Lois, and then you have the Justice Gang, as they're being called.
Which is crazy. Maxwell Lord, Mr. Terrific,
yep.
Hawk Girl.
Yeah, Guy Gardner. You have just like I've been calling them like the pseudo Justice Society, but Justice Gang for the time being, I suppose.
That shit just sounds nefarious.
It does, right? Yeah.
Like, we got the Justice Gang. I was like, can we call it the Ghostbusters? Like, right. I don't really want this.
Yeah.
Can we get Vic Mackey to come down here and help?
And my thing about that is like Mr. Terrific is noted as being the 3rd smartest man in the DC universe. Certainly smart enough to know that whatever Maxwell Lord is doing is probably up to no good. So I do wonder where this is going, because we all know that Maxwell Lord at some point has to show his villainous nature.
Yeah.
Also, fun side note, it is also speculated that Mr. Terrific might actually be the smartest man in DC Comics, but he calls himself the 3rd smartest because no one wants to be that.
Also, intellect and wisdom are 2 different things.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
yeah.
That's for you D&D players out there. So, bold prediction time.
Okay.
What do you think is going to be within a 100 mil? What do you think? What are you predicting for the box office for this thing? Actually, I tell you what, box office is kind of loaded. Let's go opening weekend.
Opening weekend. Okay.
Global opening weekend.
Global opening weekend. I'm going to say they're coming out hot. It's not the 4th of July weekend. They come out even hotter, I think, if it was that weekend.
No, but they do have a long lead up because they do have the early screenings on Tuesday.
That's true. Opening weekend, I'm going to say they're going to have oh boy. If I eat my words, I eat my words. I'm going to say a strong, because from that Tuesday to that Sunday, globally, I'm going to say a strong 180.
And the crazy thing about that too is like the hit or miss for a superhero movie used to be like the 200 mil. Mm-hmm. It's like if something was going to do gangbusters, it hit a 200 mil opening weekend.
Yep.
But like that's just not realistic these days, especially for a superhero movie. I think if it hits 180, I think Fantastic Four has a good chance of hitting like a 160 or so. They actually recently bumped up the Fantastic Four projections for opening weekend. But for Superman, I'm gonna go with you, man. I think 180 is what we'll do, and I think if it does do 180, it's gonna do gangbusters.
Yeah. The thing of it is like this, right? It's like Superman. He still has name value. James Gunn has name value, and I think that if this movie is good, word of mouth would do a lot of favors for this.
I think there's a lot of faith in James Gunn. I think he made it out of Marvel unscathed.
Yeah.
You know, something we didn't talk about earlier. James Gunn in a recent interview was like, Marvel got fucked by Disney. Like, when he talked about like the quality dropping off, he said apparently like when Bob Iger left and Bob Chapek came in, they basically came down and were like, yes, you have to put out 3 movies and 3 to 5 TV shows every year.
Oh wow.
And like that was like the decree, and so they just started like scrambling to get shit out.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, I've never heard that actually. I mean, of course, Kevin Feige can't tell us that,
right?
But to hear James Gunn, because he doesn't care now, he was like, yeah, they try to get me to make some bullshit. That's actually how he ended up getting the holiday special, I think.
Oh,
because they were just kind of being like, oh well, we need content.
Yeah,
and that I thought that was a really interesting thing. We know like, oh, Disney like basically fucked them.
And you know, on one hand, yeah, that's so fucked up. On the other hand, what do they expect when you try to make a streaming app?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna need, it's called streaming for a reason. You're gonna need a stream of content.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like that whole rollout should have been done better.
The streaming wars in general, right? Like that shit died out so fast.
Oh yeah.
Like I get that everybody wanted to get in on that, but once upon a time, there was just HBO Max, which was HBO Go at the time.
Yep.
And that it was actually an extension of your cable subscription. You couldn't even sign up for
unless you had
HBO.
Yeah.
And then this was like a way to like just kind of watch the back catalog, which obviously it was smart to expand that to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, with the internet being what it is. But it was just out of Netflix for a long time. And I think things made sense then, but like now it just everybody trying to push their streaming app and then everybody trying to slash the budgets for it because there's a real definite glass ceiling on that.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I mean it's also obvious, like even to people like you and I, that like they're not making any money from the streaming.
Yeah.
You know? Like it becomes obvious because how many of these streaming services feel like they're forced to up their subscription prices every year, you know?
I mean, the reason it worked before with HBO, right, is because Warner Brothers' list of IP is insane.
Yes.
And they would do a little bit of things where they would license other stuff. But for the most part, their own their IP list is crazy. So like they had all of HBO, which is like the center of premium TV.
Yep.
And then all their other stuff that they own, like you could put that on there, DC, whatever, animated movies, all that stuff. But they weren't doing a whole lot of original content that was specifically made for that. It was made for the TV channel. Now they're making it for that, and it also is on the TV channel.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm not saying that model doesn't work. Okay, but then you flip over to Netflix, right? They, back then, had very little original programming. They had some. But for the most part, they paid licensing fees. So if you're CW, for instance, you know, you would go to Netflix and go, okay, well, we'll put our stuff on your program 6 months after it airs on our show.
Yep.
You pay us a little bit. So Netflix pays them whatever amount, and then they put it on their platform. And that model also worked because they were just paying. I mean, they had to be paying out a lot in licensing fees, but they were making good money doing it.
Right.
Then they started to pour all this money into like, oh, we're going to make content just for this.
Yep.
And they made some great content over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, Netflix has had some bangers. Stranger Things is, I mean, one of the biggest TV shows of all time. But from those two examples, it's a fucking, I mean, like Amazon doesn't give a fuck if they make any money.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah. And, like, thankfully they still got, Invincible going strong.
Yeah, Prime's got some great stuff, but, like, they're just putting the content out there as a fuck it, like, we just want the revenue. Mm-hmm. They don't really give a shit. I mean, I'm telling you, Jeff Bezos is not sitting down going, all right, well, how much money are we spending on Invincible, and how much money is it making us? And, they're definitely not doing that shit with Rings of Power.
Yeah, no.
No.
Oh, man. Well, we were talking about Superman at some point.
We still kind of are. Yeah. It's going to be on Max eventually.
It will be, yeah. After some undisclosed amount of time.
But we were talking about James Gunn and, like, what I think that's the biggest name value here, because people have seen shitty Superman stuff, but not a lot of people have seen shitty James Gunn stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I say Superman still carries a lot of name value is because his popularity hasn't really taken a huge hit since 1938.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like he's got the second most recognizable symbol in the world. Like, I think the first is still the cross, or maybe the Superman symbol did overcome it. I don't know. That'd be hilarious. And the bat symbol is number 3 for those of you who were wondering.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that this Superman movie needs to find a way to give us like a more modernized tone that is a marriage between the Richard Donner OG flicks and the Superman comics. Give us a marriage of tones of those two things. And they also need to find a way to show Superman coming into his own, not only as a hero, but as a person.
Right.
And I think that this movie is going to be able to do that in terms of, like, threats and whatnot. Obviously, we know that Lex Luthor was in this. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Nicholas Hoult can bring to that performance. I think it'd be good.
The thing that Superman and Batman and Diana share is that they're incorruptible.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have these other heroes in the movie. It's like, yeah, these guys have superpowers, and they're using them for good, but they're also working for Maxwell Lord.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing to show, because even from the trailers, you can tell that it's kind of this situation where it's like, oh, something's going on. Well, we're going to call in the Justice Gang. And they show up and they clean up, and it's very, like, routine or whatever. They're doing a job.
Yep.
Superman is there because he wants to help humanity. He's there because it's the right thing to do. And for him, for Batman, and for Wonder Woman, all three of them as the Trinity, they share that, right? That's like the key thing that binds them together, is at the end of the day, they don't have to be there. They're there and they want to do the right thing. And like that's the central thing that drives them. And so I think that's a very good reason to have the other heroes in the movie also.
Yeah.
To show that kind of contrast. Not to say that they have to be shown in a villainous light, but just that there is a difference between what they are doing and what he is doing.
And I like that.
Me too.
That'd be a really good use of them here, actually. So, who do you think? I mean, I think they've all been confirmed that, like, the dude in the black suit is some version of Ultraman.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything else to this character that we should know about?
I'm really hoping that he's kind of just this sort of like throwaway thing. I hope he's not like a central part of the movie. Obviously, it can't be like the Ultraman. Like, he can't be from like Earth 2 or whatever. But I really don't think they should get into all that in this.
Not right now. No, that sounds like it's way down the line.
It would be hilarious if that shit was all from like some like Family Guy type scene where he's like talking with somebody, like with Lois or somebody. It's like, well, you remember that time I fought Ultraman? And then it like cuts to like a clip of him fighting him real quick, and that's all that's in the movie, you know? That'd be hilarious.
Who put him on his ass in the trailer?
I mean, Ultraman could do it.
Yeah.
The Hammer of Barovia, we don't know who the fuck that is. That's a made-up character.
Yeah, but it's a made up character, but I know it's somebody underneath that goddamn helmet.
Probably.
You know? Yeah.
Probably Lex. I don't know though. I mean, honestly, to me, David Corenswet, like from what we've seen, besides his crazy name and the fact that he looks like we got Henry Cavill at home, I think he's going to do a great job. I think what they've shown him in the trailers has me really excited for him as Superman. For me, a lot of it is going to hinge on Rachel Brosnahan as Lois. I've never liked her in anything. What I've seen of her as Lois in the trailers I like, but I'm just saying I've never liked her in anything. And there's a movie where she's topless in it, and I still didn't like her in there.
Well, damn.
That sounds awful. And then
Sky Daddy didn't like it either, I guess.
Yeah, I guess not. You can wait till I get home, Stormfather, to get super angry. But then also Nicholas Hoult, right? I like Nicholas Hoult a lot, but he's got to nail it as Lex, and we haven't really seen much of him. I think that's smart to keep it that way, but I'm very interested to see what he does.
I'm getting a lot of All-Star Superman from his Lex.
Yes, that's the way I want it to go.
Yes.
Either that or just channel Rosenbaum the whole time.
Yes. Man, is there anyone, because this movie's already packed with so many people, but is there anyone else who you would like to see make an appearance?
I'll be honest, man, not really, because I feel like it's packed already. Unless they're going to let Millie do like a Supergirl cameo as like the post-credit scene. I think that's possible. It's going to be interesting to see how they play that. From what I understand, though, the Supergirl movie is going to be cosmic. I think most of that's not going to be on Earth.
It's so it's based on this story right here. Superman, Woman of Tomorrow, and like none of this takes place on Earth. And I actually really enjoy the premise of it. I like the way that it starts off, especially. She goes to a planet, I think it has a red sun, and she goes there on her 21st birthday so she can get shit-faced. And I'm like, that's a very clever use of Kryptonian DNA. But then, obviously the shit hits the fan, and then adventure ensues. At some point before the movie, we'll probably review this.
Yeah. Yeah, we got time.
Yeah, we got time.
And it doesn't look like it's a long read.
It's pretty too long.
I'm excited for that. I'm maybe a cameo for her at the end, since I'm pretty sure that's the next movie that we're going to get. Also, though,
Clayface.
I mean... Huh?
Is it this or Clayface?
I thought it is this. I thought this is further along. Maybe, yeah. I do want to say, though, that I think it's very likely we're going to get a Peacemaker. If not in the movie, because tonally that would be kind of fucked, right? But like that might be the after credit scene.
It's funny, right? Because you look at the Peacemaker season 2 trailer and you see the Justice Gang, like all of them, there.
Yeah, I could totally see them being in the movie, or him being in the post credit scene. It'd be weird to have Peacemaker in the movie because just the tone of him.
Yeah, he's just in the background doing his dance. And
the Alan Tudyk dance. Yeah. He choreographed that, by the way, if you didn't know that.
Yes. That's so great.
The whole thing is crazy because he just happened to be on set because he's like married to one of the writers, or
it was his wife that is the dance coordinator, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he just started fucking around, and then they were like, "That's perfect. We're gonna go with that." And he was like, "What?"
Oh man. What else do we want to say about Superman 2025?
Let us know what you guys are hyped for or not hyped for, homies. We're gonna. I mean, obviously, this thing needs to succeed if we're gonna see a DCU. Obviously in the great fanboy fight, right? Like if DC is ever going to rule over Marvel again in the cinema, it's easy to forget that like prior to 2008, that was a hilarious thought, right? Like, cause before, especially before X-Men, nah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just not a thing at all, right? With like X-Men, Spider-Man, before those, there was nothing about Marvel. Like, you had slop like the 94 Fantastic Four, the 1990 Captain America.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Howard the Duck.
The old-ass Iron Man movie that they made. The Hulk TV show, the Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of slop. Mm-hmm. And, DC was so dominant in the cinema for a long time. And then the MCU came out, and despite their best efforts, Warner Brothers didn't lay a groundwork. They weren't able to catch up. And right now, Marvel is at its lowest. They're coming out with movies that are quite good that are not making money. That is problematic for them. So, obviously, this is DC's chance to kind of pick up that torch and run with it. Can they both be successful at the same time? Absolutely. And that is the goal, folks. Mm-hmm. We don't need either of them suffering at the hands of the other one. We need them both to do well.
We need them both to do well, because if one is super great and the other one isn't received well, that's bad for us as the consumers.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're going to see what's going to happen, guys. July is going to be a very interesting month. And like Caleb said earlier, next week we'll be watching Jurassic World Dominion?
Yeah.
Rebirth? Or whatever it's called.
Jurassic something. Yeah. Jurassic World, Scarlett Johansson, Electric Boogaloo, Fever, Island 7.
That's right.
One more thing I want to say, though, on this last note we did.
Oh, yeah.
I was very happy that the Thunderbolts director was announced for X-Men, because I was very worried about the Thunderbolts box office, that Disney was going to super overreact to that.
Right.
And they were going to pivot. And that shows me that they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
James Gunn is not going to have that leeway. Warner Brothers will over fucking react if this movie doesn't make any money.
Yeah. If it doesn't make any money. Like, what... I do wonder, like, what is the minimum amount that this movie can make where Warner Brothers won't shit their pants?
$500 million. Hold on, let me see what the budget is. Let me see what the budget is for this thing.
I'm going to say the budget.
The budget is $225. So we'll say the break even to be $450. Mm-hmm. So $500 million. If they get all their money back and $50 million in the bank, then the James Gunn will have some credit. We'll get at least phase 1 of Gods and Monsters.
Yeah.
But if this movie don't make any money, man, I'm so terrified of what Warner Brothers will do. Like, if this thing doesn't make $500 million, we are gonna see some crazy shit come out of Warner Brothers.
I'm not quite that worried about it, simply because, one, they don't have any replacements for James Gunn and Peter Safran. Two,
I don't think they'll get rid of them. I think they'll slash their budgets in half.
And I mean, yeah, the budgets might get slashed. I can see that.
David Zaslav wouldn't let them put a dragon fight in House of the Dragon.
I guess, like, my thoughts were like, we don't have to worry about them doing anything, I think, too drastic, simply because if they want to make money, then they realize that, like, superheroes are still one of their biggest avenues.
I would hope. They have so much IP.
Yeah. And
they own every character.
Every single DC character. Every single goddamn one. So many.
Yeah.
Marvel still doesn't have that.
I've been on social media a little bit here lately, more than I have been, and somebody tried to make a LeBron is the GOAT statement, which, I can't let that shit stand. And I was like, yeah, so Space Jam 1, they put Michael Jordan in the movie and everybody came out to see it. I was like, Warner Brothers had to put their entire motherfucking IP in Space Jam 2 and still nobody went to go see it.
See, that's, I agree. But this is also pandemic era. You can't hold that.
Yeah, I'm still, man, they put like 700, fucking Rick and Morty are in that movie.
Yeah, like, they are. Which is so ironic that Rick and Morty, of all people, are in it, because, like, there's so much shit in Rick and Morty that's, like, anti-establishment and anti-corporate greed.
Yeah.
And then there they are. Oh, boy.
But, yeah, I'm excited for Jurassic World next week. And then...
are you?
I am after that GIF. I think it will. Here's the thing. I think it'll be better than the last two. If it's better than the last two, which is a low ass bar,
yes,
then whatever. It's people running from dinosaurs. I enjoy that.
I played Dino Crisis.
Yeah. But I'm excited to review it either way.
Oh yeah,
even if we hate it.
Same.
And then we don't even have 2 weeks, you guys. We're gonna get to go see this movie early.
Yes.
I'm so excited about this movie. Like I haven't been excited like this in a bit. So
it's been a long time, man. And then between Superman and Fantastic Four, hopefully we should be eating good.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to what July has. Really looking forward to seeing this Superman movie and seeing if it can get DC live action films back on the right track. We'll see what James Gunn has cooking. But in the meantime, man, all we can do is I guess look up. That's what Superman said. It's just my ceiling right now. But yeah, you see anything?
Nah.
Okay. Well, keep looking up and you'll see something.
Yeah, I think it was a bird or maybe a plane.
No.
It could have been Superman.
No, whatever it was, it's more fashion than a speeding bullet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, couldn't have been a bird or a plane.
You think we'll get a reference to that in the movie?
Probably.
Yeah.
One more thing about like the Fantastic Four trailer, because I know that you don't want to watch like the second trailers or anything like that. I'm just spoiling shit for you. But man, like the amount of times that like apparently Ben doesn't like it's clobbering time.
Oh, that's
so like people try to get him to say it all throughout this trailer, and he's like, "No, that's not a thing that I do. Like, I don't really say that."
That's an amazing play on it. Since we hated it in Fanforce because it was so fucked.
But at the same time, I need to hear him say it's clobbering time.
Yeah, me too. But they're gonna build it up the whole movie, and then he'll do it. That's amazing. That's actually brilliant.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing about this movie is like James Gunn is gonna kill it on the soundtrack. He always does.
Absolutely.
But it's weird that he didn't have them make a soundtrack where they're like Superman.
Yeah, we could have gotten a Superman button.
Yeah.
We can't wait for Superman.
It's weird that he didn't go that route.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what he comes up with though. James Gunn, like the soundtrack, man, he always just nails it.
Absolutely. And I got a feeling that, man, we're in for some pretty intense surprises for this Superman movie.
Yeah.
Because as much as we've seen, there's still so much we just don't fucking know about this movie.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, guys. But I think it's going to be all for now, unless you got anything else.
Nah, that's it, man. Let's take it home.
Well, homies, this has been a very fun episode. A look back at Superman throughout the years. By the way, he was created in 1938 by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. I should have said that at the beginning of the podcast, but I forgot, so there you have it now. That's going to be all for now, but we will see you guys again very soon. But until next time, my name is Superhero Homie Q.
I'm Superhero Homie Caleb.
Not Butt Laser Johnny.